charge right now for a moment. So we're going to call the Charter Township of Grand Blanc Board to order, please, with our Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Massey.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And then in the absence of our supervisor this evening, I'm making a motion that Trustee Thomas chair the meeting.
Support.
Thank you, gentlemen. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas, would you take the chair?
Okay.
Good evening and welcome to our Citizens of the Whole meeting. You have the consent agreement in front of you. I'm asking for approval of a consent agreement and agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the consent agenda and the agenda with the addition, as I have texted all of you, requesting the additional stipend for our election workers because we were here until 12:30 Wednesday morning.
And you want to add that to the consent agenda or the agenda?
To the agenda, I think would be more appropriate, Mr. Chairman, unless anybody disagrees.
You've heard the motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Discussion?
Yes.
I have a question about a couple of the line items on the financial activity.
Okay. Trustee Mansour?
Yes.
Yes.
Do I do it now? Want to do it now, or want to just?
Well, it's under the consent agenda, so we probably should do it. So why don't we approve the consent agenda except for
Item A.
A?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I have a concern about B.
Okay, so let's pull A and B out of the consent agenda.
Okay.
Is there any more discussion on the consent agenda and the overall agenda?
Mr. Chair, just so I understand, so A and B are coming out of the consent agenda, and then there was a proposal to add election worker stipend to the regular body of the agenda. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll make I the
Election
Election. worker
election workers' pay
Stipend, yeah.
stipend.
stipend.
J, we'll use that for the treasurer's financial activity.
K.
K will be for the zoning board of appeals alternate.
Does your second agree with those amendments?
It's Mr. Guzak.
Yes, that's fine.
Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's go right into the public hearing. This is for the special assessment of paving repairs for Robin Drive and Thrush Drive in Granville Estate subdivision.
So moved,
Attorney-
Mr. Chairman.
Attorney,
We need a motion.
we have a
Second.
motion. Second. Any discussion?
Is that to open the public
Wait,
hearing?
I
Yes.
thought he was, yeah, I thought they was opening the public.
Open public hearing.
All right.
Okay. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Attorney Laddie?
Mr. Chairman, we're here tonight because we've called a public hearing to decide whether or not the board is going to initiate a special assessment district for the paving of Robin Drive and Thrush Drive in the Granville Estate subdivision. We sent notice out to the residents, we published twice in the paper, and we wanted to make sure that everybody understood that this proposed district only includes Robin Drive and Thrush Drive. And so that's the purpose of tonight's hearing, is to find out whether folks are in favor of that or not. This assessment hearing is different than what we normally have because it's board initiated. Folks who are not in favor of it need to register their written objection with us tonight at the hearing. If you've not already done so, you could have done it in advance as well by contacting the clerk, but if you have not already done so, then you'll need to grab one of the cards over on the desk and fill that out if you are in opposition. Whether you're for or against, you're welcome to speak, certainly. And we'll be trying to keep a tally on those that object. And the threshold will be that if more than 20% of the road frontage owners object to the creation of the district, then we are not able to move forward until we receive a petition that shows that more than 51% are in favor. And so we're really going to want to tally up those who are opposed to make sure that we stay below that amount if you want to proceed with this. So does the board have any questions before you begin to take comment?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I have provided to each of the board members, to Mr. Limita and to Attorney Laddie, a memo in your packet on the table.
Okay.
The 9 written and a 10th who had signed, the first 9 people who were opposed never signed the original agreement that we used as a basis for considering this action. Number 10 is someone that signed the petition and is now changing and are opposed. And then I provided you with a list by address. The yellow ones are the ones that I received written responses from that are still opposed, and you can see they don't have that blue pen mark. So those are the 10 that are still opposed that did not sign the original petition. And the reddish one is from 5521 that has changed their opinion by phone to me, but has said they will submit. I said I need something in writing and they're out of town, so I said put a letter in the mail so that stating your opinion.
Is that legal, Mr. Larry?
Just let me clarify. So you received 9 objections in writing,
Right.
right? And then you received a 10th, which you made a notation relating to the earlier petition. But that tonight, for tonight's purposes, the petition's irrelevant.
Okay.
Okay? And so you have now 10 that have filed with you written objections.
Well, number 10 was in a verbal one on the phone today. They had called long distance, and I said they have to submit something to me in writing.
It has to be here right now.
Okay.
Otherwise, it doesn't count.
All right.
So what about...
And the other blue marks were people that
No,
signed the original
I'm
petition.
just on the first page of your memo.
Yep.
The first 9,
Uh-huh.
you received written objections to.
Correct.
Number 10, was that somebody that wanted to mail you in a written objection later?
Yes.
Okay, then we're going to strike that.
Okay.
What is the...
The
Oh.
last one is not in the district, but wanted us to know that he preferred that the entire subdivision be done. But that's why I didn't include him.
Okay. And that's fine for people to offer that opinion. In fact,
Right.
if they want to do that tonight, they're able to offer that opinion. That's not what is in front of us tonight, though.
I know.
What's in front of us tonight is just Robin and Thrush
Correct.
and the creation of the district.
Okay.
If the board has any other questions, I'll be happy to answer. Otherwise,
What was the total amount that we have on there? We've got 9 that said no. What's the total amount?
you have 9 currently that have sent in written objections, and the
Right.
total number of parcels is 64. Now, Mr. Sears is here with a diagram of the district, and so what I'd like to do for him, if he doesn't have Ms. Lane's memo, I'd like to give him a copy of that.
I gave it to him before the meeting, Mr. Laddie.
Okay, we believe that, I mean, interestingly enough, the lots are basically fairly uniform in size, but Mr. Sears is going to be checking the number of people that object against the front footage requirements, and so we'll keep track of that during the meeting. But again, this is a time for folks to offer their opinion on this item, for or against, and so I'm sure we'll hear a lot of questions and a lot of comments.
Well, the first thing I'd like to do is to invite anybody that is against this proposal to please fill out a comment card located over there at the bench, because if you don't fill it out in writing, it will not count in the tallies, correct?
That's correct.
So if there's anybody who wants to fill out a card, please do.
But if they've already on the list, they don't have to, right?
Unless, correct, if you're on the list, you don't have to.
That looks like one of the
Yep.
cards.
So should we have the folks turn those into Attorney Lanning?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody that has slips, could you please come on up to the board and turn them into our attorney?
If they're, especially if they're against,
Yeah, we need the ones that are against.
just pass it down.
Hi, Ryan.
Oh, that's fine.
I didn't see
The
you.
guy with the cap tie down there at the end.
Okay,
I know, but let's, they pass it down.
thank you. Thank you.
You can check them against the list that I have, so we're not duplicating.
So while we're filling out the cards and filling them out and turning them into Attorney Laddie, what I would like to do is I'd like to start on the side of my room to the left of me for any type of comments,
Or questions.
any questions, comments. This is the time to ask them. We're gonna go, just the paving right now, and then we'll be going into public comment shortly.
Mr. Thomas, do we have any guidelines about the comments? How many minutes? We want to limit the,
I'm sorry, the comments are gonna be limited to 3 minutes.
And I need their name and address.
And we need the name, your name and address. Okay, anyone on the left? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Jill Gilliland. My parents own the property. I'm a writer on their will for the property.
What address, please, ma'am?
5362 Thrush Drive.
5352?
5362.
Thank you.
My name's in Grambling Township. That's how I got the letter. A couple questions, real quick questions on the 10-year dispersal. There was mention of it going to 15 years, and I wanted to know what that determination was, and any interest levied on those periods of time. Do you know that?
What we would like to do is have everybody ask their questions, and then after everyone's done, then we'll go through and we'll answer every single question.
Okay, so you've got those two questions.
Yep.
Another concern I have with this is the same thing that you made a comment about, the entire subdivision, which really would go against my property because it is actually on a corner. But I think for the sake of costs and actually having everything be even, it would be a better situation. Another comment I have is about Howell. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was also paved at the same time as Robin and Thrush. And I'm wondering why it's not in with this particular assessment. And so I'm concerned about that, and that may also help bring the cost down. The biggest concern I have is the cost. I submitted a letter to the attorney, and it addresses the cost. If it's going to be put in the winter taxes, then we're going to end up with almost double, or if not over double, on the winter taxes. Even if it got spread out over the winter and the fall, summer, whatever you call them, it would still be a third up in our taxes. And so that is a big concern to me as well. And no mention of the interest is put in there. There's no actual firm cost mentioned on that. I remember coming back here 6 years ago and we were not given exact determinations. I've dealt with other cities when they say it's one cost, it ends up being almost like a 20% increase when the actual figures come in. So I thought the public should know that these, if they're not firm prices on what will be levied, more than likely they're going to be more, not less. So those are my biggest concerns.
Okay, see if we can answer these for you.
Thank you.
Attorney Laddie?
Sure. First of all, the difference between the 10 and the 15 years is really an identification from the Road Commission that the design life of the improvement will be in the 20-year range, and I think we had confirmation of that from Genesee County Road Commission. What that means is that we forward that information to our bond counsel, and he can represent to the folks who may loan us money. Usually they could be a part of a bond package or it could be an individual bank. They need to know that that the life of that road is going to exceed the amount of time that we would have for the district. So with a 20-year design life, we are pretty safe in saying that we can spread those payments out over 15 years. And those are the two determining factors. First of all, the Road Commission, and secondly, the bond counsel. And in this case, they both have agreed that 15 years is appropriate. Regarding the interest rate and carrying on from the bond counsel, we don't know what the interest rate is now, because what happens is we make this proposal to lenders and any other bond issue that may be going along, and we ask them to bid on it, and they do, and it can vary. I think, however you feel about the economy recently, I think it's probably going to help interest rates. But we have been pretty successful at finding good competitive rates. And the interesting thing about a rate for a public project is it's one of the duties of our bond counsel is to certify that the interest from a bank, for example, is tax-free to them. And so that means that you get a lower interest rate than you would if you just walked into a bank as a citizen. And so that's good news. Bad news is we don't know what that is. I think we haven't seen anything in excess of 3.5.
Yeah, usually it's 3.5 is a high number, but it could go up, you don't know.
It
but-
could, or Michael, or who knows what's going to happen. But we won't know until we're on the way to the project, unfortunately. So that is one of the variable costs that you mentioned. Other variable costs are things that the Road Commission's contractor, they bid this out to contractors. It's a competitive bidding process. And they're going to select the lowest responsible bid. Doesn't mean it has to be the lowest one. But they may find things during the project that increase the cost. And so you're right that it's possible that it could go up. I know that Mr. Hill is here, and I'm not just buttering him up, but I've got to say that of the last dozen or so projects that I've been involved in, they've come in pretty much on the button as far as their estimates go and the construction costs. That's not to say that it couldn't happen, but they've got a pretty good track record so far. As far as how the district was drawn, with cooperation from the assessing department, the GIS department, and the DPW department, that determination was made through those three offices, and they've tried to find the most equitable pattern for the creation of the district to spread the cost out as fairly as they can. We've identified the district, and we can't make it bigger tonight, which is why comments regarding other streets aren't necessarily going to fit within this public hearing, because we don't have the ability to expand it at this point in time.
Attorney Laddie, can you give a little bit of history on why we're not doing the whole subdivision briefly?
Well, yeah, I'm going to go off I'm not going 8 years back or 6 years back, because I know that we've been through this before. But I understand that there was a petition that was circulated probably at least once, maybe twice, maybe many times. I know that there are folks who have appeared at our meeting tonight and explained the efforts that they went through to try to get the 51% on the petitions. They ultimately weren't successful in doing that for the entire subdivision. And unfortunately, we had to make a decision that we weren't able to piecemeal that petition right? And so we weren't going to move forward with less than 51% in favor of the petition for the entire subdivision. So what we did was, after consideration of the way the petitions turned out, as far as folks who were in favor and folks who were against, we decided tonight to set a public hearing to find out if there was interest in moving forward on just Thrush and Robin. And so the other two streets are not, I think there are two other streets, and they're not included in the district. And so that's how we got here tonight. It's a little bit of an unusual circumstance for us because of the petition process and because of the way the support and the opposition kind of fell. And the road commission had to agree to split up the project to just do the two roads, and they agreed to do that. If I've answered your question, I'll move on to the tax question then. And finally, regarding the taxes, so we have decided we are able to spread those payments out over 15 years. And so what we'll do, you have the option of paying up front if you can. You would avoid interest payments if you do that. If you can't do that, then you're able to divide your payments up into as long as 15 years. You'll get each year you'll get a 1/15 share that will show up on your winter taxes, and you pay them just like you would your taxes. It's a special assessment. It's not actually a tax, but every winter you get that on your tax bill.
I think that's all of them. Did we miss any?
Can I make another comment?
Sure.
The 15 years would help in the dispersal, but you were inaccurate about how many streets weren't included. There is Thrush, Robin, Cardinal, Meadowlark, and Howe.
No.
So there are 5, and Howe is the longest street because it connects from Hill
One person.
to, what's the other road?
Just one person. I think he added one street that's not part of the district, and that was what, How?
How is a local road. It's not in a subdivision.
It's not considered part of the,
No.
if I'm not mistaken though, it was paved at the same time as, no, I'm wrong about that? All right. Another concern that came after I sat down was about the sewer drainage, and there was something with the flooding. The ditches maybe weren't deep enough or something. I'm not aware if those problems have been fixed, and I was wondering if that is included in the repair project, the road project?
Give me one second. Director Sears, can you answer to that?
Well, we got Mr. Hill on project.
Oh,
Mr. Hill.
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
We're gonna,
So that's a question, I
Yep.
don't know.
okay. Do,
Mr. Hill is right there.
yep, well, real quick. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Rich Hill from the Genesee County Road Commission. He's, came out to answer some questions. If you could write these down, and once we get done with the public comment, we can add those to your list of quandaries. Is there anybody else that wants to speak? Yes, please come on up. Or, come on up. We started on this side, so.
Good evening, Board. My name's Hernan Portillo. I live at 4351 Meadowlark Drive. My request is, if it's possible, because I live in between a Thrush and Robin, to have just that area paved. I know at one point they decided to not do a Meadowlark at all from...
Yeah, they didn't have the 51%.
Okay. Is it possible to have that done from Robin to Thrush if we can get enough votes in that section?
If we did something like that,
You gotta talk to Mr. Laddie, he'll clear that.
Yeah.
well, I think we'd have to start the whole process over.
Well, you can't do it tonight.
No, you'd have to start the whole process all over, and what we've done so far would be none and void. But, do you want to speak more on that?
Just that if there's an opportunity to add to the project, and the road commission would have to consider this, and I don't think they've had the chance to do that. But any process like that would need to follow the petition process. right? So you'd have to get a petition together for those people on your street and get 51%. Because we can't do that tonight, right? We can't add to the special assessment district. So you'd have to carry around, or you'd have to get a petition carried around to your neighbors, get more than 51%. We'd have to set up like a sub-assessment district to do that and move on from there.
Could it still be done at the same time that these other streets were done, if we can get this put together in a timely?
Just
Matter?
from a construction standpoint,
I'm gonna give you that.
I'll let the road commission
Jeremy.
consider that. I don't need them to answer tonight. But that process I just described to you, the petition process, and this is only the first public hearing on this. After we got the petitions, we'd have to set another public hearing with more than 10 days' notice. Then we have to hold the hearing, and then we'd have to have a second public hearing. So that is about a 30 to 45 day time frame at the least. And so I don't know what the construction schedule might turn out to be, but it would have to fit within, it would have to be in and approved before construction began, or probably even before bids came in. So again, Mr. Hill, you probably haven't contemplated that, and I don't want to put you on the spot tonight. But the first thing you want to do, if you want to find out the answers to that, is get a petition going right away and see if you got 51%.
Well, I got 2 other neighbors here, so there's only 5 neighbors on, I believe there's 1, 2,
4, 6.
Is it
You
five?
have 6 lots,
There's-
6 lots according to my
1,
map.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
But
Yes, and there's 3 here as of right now.
So so
So you
tomorrow,
need one
you'd
more.
have to contact the township and find out what you need for the petition and how you proceed with that,
Absolutely.
okay?
Okay. One more question. Why wasn't Meadowlark ever paved?
That's a good question. I don't think any of us here are old enough to answer that.
No, none of us were around.
I mean, everywhere else has been paved. I mean,
Were you around?
Meadowlark's, I believe that is the only dirt road. I mean, and Grand Blanc left township?
No,
I mean, right there.
lots. But that was way before everyone on this board.
Right.
I think it was before you and I were born.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm only 52. I'm only 52.
Call the next.
Trustee Massey?
Yes,
You got a question?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
And it has been answered during the process. My question was, based on the attorney's last statement about getting the petition signed, and I was gonna ask how many homes there were and what was the time frame. So there's only, according to Clerk Lane, there's only, what, 5 or 6 homes?
6. So
6
they need one more.
properties.
Just
Yeah.
one more.
Right here.
Yes.
Yeah, that would give you 4 out of 6.
So my comment would be you could pick up the petition tomorrow and have them back Monday.
Yeah?
We don't
early
do them
Tuesday
that
morning.
fast. David.
Okay, is there any more comments on this side of the room, my left? Okay, yes, sir.
Thanks, Richard Hart. I'm at 5391, and I also have 5396. And
5391,
Thrush.
thank you.
And I'm not sure who would be the person to answer this question, but part of it would be is what kind of guarantee do we have that there's going to be a quality job done this time? Because when this road was done back in the 70s originally, they only did half the job. They never finished it, and that is why it's in the condition it is, partly.
Okay,
You know, even my little brothers know that, wow, they came in, they did 1 layer of pavement and that's it. And that they came, they raised the manhole covers up to put the second coat on, and they never came back.
I know that this goes out to a bid process.
Right,
and
that's
that
what I mean, it goes
through-
out to a bid contest.
But Mr. Hill's
It's
the
done
one-
by independent contractors.
Right.
But somebody has to be there to say,
Yep,
our
some-
independent contractor didn't fulfill
someone's
the
gotta
whole
be the buck
contract, so they
stops here.
expect us to come up with all this money after the fact and pay for a job that's not finished.
Yep, I
You know.
totally agree.
I mean, if it was me and not my dad at the time, it's like, I wouldn't have stood for it, but,
Yep.
you know, I was just a kid riding my bike up and down the street, and it was a lot better than the dirt at the time, you know?
Yep. We'll have Mr. Hill answer that.
And it's like, the other thing I would want to say is that to me, they're looking at just a single option and only doing it with this one material. I know that there has to be more than one way to pave a road. And we've seen that just from the fact that they do Hill Road all the time. You know, they're gonna do it again. But this is a very low traffic road. It doesn't get the traffic that Hill Road does. And why there's not another option that might cost less and be more in line with most of the people's budgets. Because I know a lot of the people who live in that area, especially at our end of the street, a lot of them have started to die off, so maybe not as much now, but are older, fixed income, and to try to have them pay an extra $1,000 or however much it's gonna end up being per year, some of them aren't gonna be able to afford it,
Okay,
you know?
yep, I understand. Mr. Hill, do you want to tackle these two questions before we go to the other side of the room? So, again, this is Mr. Hill from the Genesee County Road Commission. You might,
I could turn it around.
yep, you can turn it around, that's what I was going to suggest.
Try and just
Or you can just speak from that.
podium.
Not real good. Everybody hear me now? Okay. My name is Richard Hill. I'm the design manager at the Genesee County Road Commission, and I've been involved in all three phases of the estimates and the attempts to get this whole subdivision repaved. So this is my third time talking to you good people, and I recognize some faces and others I don't. So I have three questions here actually that came up. One, were the drainage issues be addressed on Robin and Thrush? I know there is a problem drainage issue at the corner of Meadowlark and Thrush, and definitely, yeah, as part of that project, that we'll be doing some drainage improvements to make sure that the water goes where it's supposed to go. The second question was the guarantee for the work. There is no guarantee per se. The work is, as Attorney Lottie said, we advertise statewide. We take bids. They're open in a public setting at our office in Flint. The lowest qualified bidder is selected that bid on the job according to the plans and specifications that we put out. Then during the construction, the job will be under the construction engineering and inspection of the Genesee County Road Commission. So we'll make sure that the road is built according to our standards. And once it's, and we don't sign off on the project until we're satisfied that it's to our standards. Once we sign off on it, if something happens over the next few years, then we have to come out and fix it ourselves because we took responsibility for it. And it's not to say that the road won't crack within a few years. Asphalt always will crack. There will be small cracks within a few years, but there won't be any major problems like you have out there now for at least 20 years according to this plan we have now. And the third question was, are there alternate materials to pave a road? Yes, there's concrete. You can pave a road. That would be slightly more expensive and it'd be more difficult to maintain, and I don't really suggest that you use it in this setting. The asphalt we propose is the asphalt that is our standard to use on all subdivision roads, and the pavement design that we have is also our standard for subdivisions. And it's not, you think about the traffic on it, it's not the passenger vehicles that wear down the road. It's the school buses, it's the garbage trucks, it's the delivery vehicles that wear down the road. So that's why we have to have the payment as it is. And I believe that's the three questions that were brought to me at this time. So
Okay.
back over to you.
I'd like to continue now with some, are we done with the left side of the room for public comment? Any other questions on the left side? Okay, let's go to the right side. Sir? Yeah, come on up, please.
Hello, my name is Brian Hugo. I live at 5545 Thrush Drive. Me and my wife Sarah, we were the people who worked last summer to get signatures on the petition to repave the roads in Granville Estates. I completely understand where people are coming from about the costs. It's expensive. It's very expensive. I wish we didn't have to pay the full amount for this. I don't know that it'll ever come back to the way it was, where we didn't have to pay the full amount for it. I also completely and totally understand the view of some of the residents who live on Meadowlark and Cardinal. They want their road done as well. There unfortunately wasn't that many people on that road who signed the petition originally. It would be great if our whole neighborhood was paved. Because of that, Sarah and I worked very hard for an amazing amount of time during last summer. Many houses we visited 3, 4, 5 times. On Thrush and Robin Drive, we were able to get over 50% of the people to sign the petition. On the other roads, we were not successful. It was not from a lack of asking. We were very diligent at the time because it was all or nothing. This was a very interesting summer as we got to know our neighbors, which was wonderful. It was also very frustrating and very tedious work. It was many days and evenings discussing this with lots of people, and a lot of people were very interested and wanted to discuss it. Due to the history of our neighborhood, there was a lot of people who had a lot to say. We were very grateful to the board for your leadership in finding a way to at least get the worst roads fixed this summer based on our work. If we were to try a whole neighborhood petition all over again, it would throw all of this work away. On top of that, I do not believe it would yield any different results at this time. I can speak for Sarah and me when I say that we will not be doing this whole neighborhood again. I was working from home last summer and could adjust my schedule as needed. We were in a position that we could spend a lot of time on it. The reason I say this is because I'm not sure that everyone understands the amount of work that has to actually be done. I fear that even with the best of intentions, it might be a bit overwhelming and just possibly not get done. That would cancel out all the work and our only possibilities to get these 2 roads paved that we have now. To redo a petition will not be simple or easy. It will be just as difficult and time consuming, maybe more so, as we'll have to explain what happened this time as well. I would, however, be very happy to help in getting an assessment passed for the 2 remaining roads in the future, as they have way fewer houses on them than Robin and Thrush Drive. Some really good people live on those roads, and I know they're really wanting to get them done as well. I think that it is possible in the future, as the residents who live on them, who wouldn't sign the petition last time, will see the nice new roads and be a bit more receptive. I do know that this board has shown support for us and will most likely do so in the future for those endeavors. I think it would be a huge mistake on everybody's part to stop the progress that we made this summer on Robin and Thrush Drive because of these reasons. I beg people to please, if you're against this, think about it. This is our last chance to get this done for a very long time. I continue to ask you guys for your leadership on this special assessment for Thrush and Robin. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more citizen comment to the right? Yes, please come out.
Hi, I'm Sarah Hugo. I live at 5545 Thrush Drive also, and I just wanted to thank all of you for considering this special assessment. I know I've been here quite a few times begging for it to be done, and as Brian said, we put so much work into it, and I know that there are a lot of people here that are opposed to it, but our roads aren't going to get any better without this getting done, and it's not going to get any cheaper. So again, I wanted to thank you, and hopefully we can keep pushing forward.
Thank you for all the hard work you put forth in this. Sir?
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Doug Gingrass. I live at 5457 Thrush Drive. First thing I want to talk to, and this is out of order, this election stipend, I fully support it. I'm one of your election workers.
Thank you for your service.
Okay, got a couple questions in regard to this project. The scope of the project does it still include replacing the sewer lines under the roadway? And if it does, why are we not going down Cardinal Drive and replacing them? If ours are bad enough, they need to be replaced, the other ones do also. If they're not bad enough to replace them, is there any proof, either video or written report, that those sewer lines need replacing? And can we forego that part of the expense of the project? My next concern is, I live a quarter of a mile down the road from Hill Road. And many residents, by the time they get to my house, are doing 40 and 45 miles an hour. Can we install speed bumps? Standing in the front yard yelling, slow down, doesn't work. And our illustrious police force is never around when that happens. Is there something we can do to provide safety of the neighborhood? It's bad enough now. Now make it a skateboard rink and see what happens. I'm concerned. Yes, I am concerned about the cost. Another question I have. I own the empty lot next door to me. Is that part of the assessed value also? And just to hear those answers, that'd be good.
Okay. Well, on the safety concerns, I'd like to ask Chief Wiles if he would respond to that.
Thank you.
Our police chief's here this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
I can certainly understand your concerns with the speeding vehicles. That is the #1 complaint that I get regardless of subdivision in Grand Blanc Township. We do target those subdivisions as much as we can. I know we may not be out there as much as some of our residents would like on a specific street, but we are out there. We are able to post our speed measurement devices, which collects data for us, so we can allocate our resources out there. On Thrush, I'd be more than happy to put it out there for you so we can collect new data on that and assign officers out there when most in need. In reference to speed bumps are an idea that comes up a lot from residents. Unfortunately, the problem with speed bumps are, once they are in place, you see an increase in speed before the speed bump, they slow down for the speed bump, and then they increase speed after the speed bump again. So it defeats the purpose. We see that across the state with speed bumps, and that's why you don't see a whole lot of them in subdivisions around the state.
Thank you. The speed bumps are definitely not a deterrent. We found that out in Williamsburg Farms. That was an interesting study. Going back to Mr. Hill, would you like to answer the sewer lines? And I'm not sure who would answer the empty lot question, Attorney Laddie.
Yeah, I'm gonna why don't we have Mr. Sears consider that question and he can address it later.
Okay.
Okay, the question of the sewer lines or the driveway culverts and such is the question of whether they need to be placed on Cardinal or not is, I believe, a moot question because Cardinal is not part of this district. There are normally when we bid out a project like this and we do the ditches, we have to basically replace the culverts. In order to keep costs down, what normally happens is the contractor bids on the project knowing he'll get the old culverts as salvage and replace them with new culverts. If the culverts are in generally good enough shape that they can be salvaged, we'll instead put the pay item as salvage culvert to be reused. And if that's ends up being the best way to go for this project, that's what we do. It's very unlikely that we would do that because when they're doing work on the culverts, sometimes the culverts get damaged anyways because they have to pull them out to do work on the driveways. Then the question on speed bumps, that I echo with the police chief's thoughts, and I also say that on public roads, the road commission does not allow speed bumps.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Director Sears is our DPW director, and Jeff, if you can answer this gentleman's question about empty lot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, empty lots are included in the assessment district. So every lot, individual lot, is a separate assessment.
So does he, let's say he wants to vote yes, does he vote yes for 2 times?
It's signed for both properties, correct?
Or if he votes no, that would be for both properties?
Correct.
Or if he just wants to do 1 yes and 1 no?
You could do that.
Okay, any more public comment on my right side of the room, this side? Any more, yes, sir.
I just wanted a quick clarification. Are they actually replacing the sewer lines under the roads in Thrush End Drive? Or on Robin and Thrush Drive?
Are you referring to sanitary sewer?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any more questions at all? Yes.
I asked about ditches and I didn't hear a mention on that. Are the ditches going to be redone a little deeper?
Mr. Hill was talking about that earlier.
Yes.
Yes, they
Yeah.
are.
We'll do the 3 ditches and all the one
So, okay. Did that answer your question, ma'am? Okay. Is there any more questions? Okay, so is this one I say
Close the
3
public hearing.
times?
Sure.
Yep.
So, any more questions? 1. Any more questions? 2. Any more questions? 3. At this time, I will close the public hearing and bring it back up here to the operation issues.
That'll be the first one, not now. We're gonna do the rest first.
Okay. Is that,
And then you have just general public comment.
yeah,
True? Okay.
Anybody want to talk about anything?
okay. I don't get to use my gavel, huh?
Not yet.
So the public hearing is over. Now, on the left-hand side of the room, my left-hand side, this side, is there any public comment?
See if I can make this gadget work. My name's Alice Grover. I'm at 6405 Prairie Dunes Drive, and I'm your other thorn. I'm here for the water. I was unable to attend the meeting, which I believe was the meeting on February 13th, where the gentleman presented the cost to the township of all of the commercial users ceasing to use irrigation water. What did not come up then, and seeing as I heard some chit chat before the meeting today that perhaps water would be on the next agenda, then I would love to have an answer to my question about the cost to the township of the commercial users turning off irrigation. I would like to know how many commercial users there are, because that gentleman who spoke that night said only all residential, all commercial, but there was no specific mention of how many in each group, and I think that that's an important concept. Thank you.
What is, excuse me, ma'am, your street?
Prairie Dunes.
Thank you.
I think the best way to get that answer, ma'am, would it be to call and make an appointment or have a phone conversation with our director, Jeff Sears? And Jeff, could you give her your direct line? Thank you, sir. But he would definitely be the gentleman that Mr. Potter reports to. Is there any more public comment on the left side of the room? Mr. Hurt? I'm leaving if you don't say so.
Okay. Now, Eric, 72124 Porter Road. Is Grand Reserve a commercial user? They're residential, aren't they?
Yeah, they're residential.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Is there any public comment on the right side of the room? Okay, hearing none, I will close public comment. Approval of the minutes.
That's a move.
You've heard the motion.
Well, it has to be a second, and I imagine that we're approving all 6 of the minutes listed.
If no one has any objection.
Now I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Operational issues. The board will consider a resolution to approve the special assessment for paving repairs for Robin Drive, Thrush Drive, and Granville Estates subdivision.
Mr. Chairman, I would be willing to make the motion to approve until Mr. Laddie gives us the accounting of what he found out with.
Perfect, thank you. What we have is Director Sears had sat down and took the written objections and cross-checked them with the record owners according to a document that shows the record owners of the properties in the district. He determined that there were 19.3% in opposition, which is below the 20% opposition to prevent the project moving forward. And so what that means is that if you choose to move forward with the project, you may do so without requiring a 51% petition. And again, it was 19.3 in opposition. And that is a combination of the road frontage. So that's your answer. So you may proceed if you choose to proceed.
So from here, this would be the closing of the hearing after this vote.
No.
Okay.
What would happen then, you have a resolution in front of you, and I think Clerk Lane was about to make a motion to adopt that resolution. And so now that you have the answer that you're not prevented from moving forward, I'll get out of the way and see what you do.
Okay. Clerk Lane?
So moved to adopt the resolution as presented to proceed with the paving of Robin and Thrush.
I have a motion. I'm sorry.
Support?
Oh, I got my support. Any more discussion? Any discussion?
Roll call.
It's a roll call vote, so Clerk Lane?
Mr. Mansour?
Yes.
Mr. Guzak?
Yes.
Mr. Massey?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Motion is approved. Okay, you're
Did you
welcome.
want to get any closing remarks from Mr. Hill as
I
to what's
would-
going to happen?
First off, I would like to thank the Hugos for all the hard work that they put forth in this project. It's just very, very impressive. I would also be remiss if I didn't thank Trustee Massey and Clerk Lane for their hard work and their subcommittee going over this, finding a way that they could pass this and brought it to the board for approval. Really nice job, Clerk Lane, Trustee Massey, thank you very much. If it wasn't for you two, it wouldn't be here, and you should, the residents owe you a dear satisfaction. And I'd like to thank Richard Hill for coming out tonight, answering any questions, and making sure that the project's done correctly, and just grade A job, like the county always does.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Going back to operational issues.
You could excuse people if they want to leave.
No, they need to stay for the whole meeting. Jeez. The board will consider a motion to change the investment policy in section 7, investment parameters, change the word minimum to target as shown in the packet. You have the packet. Is there
Mr. Guzak?
any motion?
It was on page 6 of your minutes.
Oh, I so moved.
So moved. I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Clerk or trustee?
Yep.
Treasurer Guzak?
No, it was actually
Me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Trustee Mansour?
Yep, so the question I have is when we change the wording from minimum to target, I mean, who reviews that? Who sets that?
Well, that's set by PFM, okay? And I think part of the problem with PFM was if you have it as a actual minimum, if they drop below the 15%, they could be written up on an audit or whatever, so it's very hard to hit that target, so that's why they wanted to change it to the target. And of course, the committee worked on it, and Mr. Limita was involved in that too, and we all thought that that was a good idea, so that wouldn't hinder the process.
Thank you.
Is there any more discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to, Mr. Treasurer, you
Yes, sir.
forgot another name that worked on it also.
Well, yes, but I'm sorry. Joe was also in the committee, so I forgot.
No, I wasn't referring to me so much. I was referring to the finance director.
Kathy,
She was part
yeah.
of that.
Oh, right. The finance committee, of course, is Joe Massey, myself, and Mr. Limita, and then Kathy Sostek, which is our finance director.
Okay. Scott, a member of the committee?
Well, he has been
He's-
the last few
all right,
times, so
Yeah.
actually Scott was involved in it too.
This committee has shown a great communication level and hitting their targets for the investment of our residents' funds. And you're gonna see tremendous amounts of money coming back to the township for their uniqueness on how they put together this finance. And Superintendent Limita, you've done a fantastic job doing this. Trustee Massey, again, kudos to you. And of course, kudos to you, Treasurer Guzak. I'm very impressed, and just please keep up the great work. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The board will consider a motion to approve the request for fundraiser 5K beer fun run to be held at Bicentennial Park with proceeds going to the Parks and Recreation Department.
I so move.
Can I get a second?
Support.
Okay, discussion. Trustee Limita, would you like to go over this?
Sure. We were approached by Kim Turner from Advanced Physical Therapy, and I see she was here. Did she have to slip out? Okay. But Erin is here, and one of the things that these guys do is they put on the Hills and Drills out at Bicentennial Park, and so they came up with this a couple of years ago as a way to give back for the use of the Bicentennial Park. It was held out there, and they raised approximately $9,000. All proceeds that they raise go back to Park for operations. We moved it to a local golf course, and it ran there, but they only raised about $2,000 when it's at the golf course. So they approached us to see if we would be interested in moving it back out to Bicentennial Park, again with the idea that the money is going to come back to Parks and Recreation operations. The gist of the run, and Aaron can go over it, but they put a course together. It's a 5K. There is, it's an outside of the box kind of way of thinking of a fun run. They have 5-ounce cups of light beer available at each K that you can participate in if you so desire. The course is mapped out, and then it ends back at the South Pavilion. The South Pavilion does have snow fence put up where they do serve additional food or beers after the fun run. I did check with Mr. Bucko, who is our liability carrier for the park plan insurance. We do automatically have alcohol coverage on the park, or actually all township properties, as part of our park plan. I wanted to know if there were any specific liability concerns here. He did provide, which were included in the packet, the actual forms that would be required to sign the waivers for both the volunteers and the participants. Supervisor Bennett does provide alcohol server training, the TIPS program. It is recognized by the state of Michigan. I'm sorry I forgot, he left some brochures to leave at your area so that you can see what that program is all about. But they actually provide training for the volunteers when it comes to serving alcohol. We were trying to cover all of the bases so that the board could make a decision on, that we had covered. We have got waiver forms, we do have liability coverage, we do have the folks here, and again, Erin is here, she'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. She's not only a runner, but she's done a lot of runs or planned a lot of runs, and she can answer more specific questions about that.
Erin, would you come on up to the podium, please? Question for you, Superintendent Limita, is that we have not gone over the alcohol policy for the parks yet for the year 2020. And that has not been brought to the board, which is supposed to be brought to the board every year. And when you say that the volunteers, is somebody gonna train the volunteers from our township?
Supervisor Bennett.
He will be training them,
Yes.
okay? So give us a great pitch.
Great pitch. So the Grand Blanc Beer 5K is just like he said, it was in our second year, I think, of Hills and Drills, and we were just having a really great time, and I was so appreciative just of the community and the synergy. We were all working together, and
I was asking to shut the door so
okay.
you can hear you.
We were all working together, and I wanted to, to show that by giving back. So I came up with this idea to have a beer run. And to make it really user-friendly, rather than something crazy like a beer mile, which is a thing, and that's actually 4 12-ounce beers over 1 mile, I wanted to spread it out. So over the course of 5K, 3.1 miles, we would have roughly 20 ounces of beer that would be available to drink over that time. So it was, a lot of fun. That first year I did it, Kay really challenged me to come up with a creative course. And the route that we do is really cool. So all of the beer that's served stays inside of that snow fenced area. There's no beer outside of that area. So the result is that we do short little loops, and we are able to take people all over the course. We go up the sledding hill, we go around the fields, we go around the soccer field, and we go through little trail section, and even kind of show off the play space, which we're so proud of because that's a recent development, and a lot of us were active in promoting that. So it's a really great way to just kind of bring people in and have a good time. We do it on a Friday evening. It's pretty, low key, but a lot of fun. We have music. Usually the girls will be going, and there'll be additional drinks for purchase there, and all of the money goes right back to the park. And we do have sponsors as well. So, just a really good time and an opportunity to showcase the park in a different light.
And you think we'll go from 2,000 back up to 9,000?
I don't know if we will at that point, because to be honest, we had a lot more lead time on planning. I would say at this time, that first year, we already had, probably 150 people signed up. And Kay worked very hard at getting sponsors and things like that. So without that factor of not having Kay involved anymore, it is harder for me to estimate where we'll be at on a sponsor level and things like that, because Kay did all that legwork. And to be honest, Kay would have been here now instead of me doing this work. So with that gone, it's hard for me to tell you
okay.
What it's going to be.
Erin, if you need some help, call me, I'll help you. When I did the thing for the pavilion, the new pavilion, we had that big party out at the Elks. If you need some help, I'll get some sponsors for you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Mr. Chair.
Earl? I'm sorry, Trustee. I'm sorry, Trustee Massey.
My question is, how do we deal with the alcohol policy?
Superintendent Limita?
You guys have a policy that has provided alcohol in the pavilions every year for the last 4 years, I'm guessing. Typically, because we had Parks and Recreation Commission handling the rentals, so as a condition for the Parks and Rec Commission to continue to offer it, they brought the request forward every year after the first of the year before the pavilions were rented about continuation of the alcohol policy. We no longer have Parks and Rec Commission in charge of it. It's a township operation now, and that's up to the board on what you guys want to do as far as the policy goes.
What I'd like to make a suggestion, if everyone's okay with this, is that we would discuss the alcohol policy at the next board meeting, put that on the agenda, and then we can delve deep into this. I would like to approve Erin's project for tonight, because
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Erin's project tonight, so she can get to work on her raising funds and everything else, because hers is just a small amount of liquor, and it's not, or beer, and it's not you know what I mean. And then we can tackle the liquor policy at the next meeting. Okay? Yes.
Yeah, the question I had is, I thought when it went from the park out to the Elks and then it went to the Jewel, part of the problem was we wanted to have a licensed bartender there to make sure everything was fine. And to me, if it's all segregated in one area, it sounds like it's all fenced in. And so it seems like instead of having volunteers train, we should have a licensed bartender. So that would help.
Well, that's what Scott is.
Yeah, but he's not going to be serving it. He's training it. I'd like to have a licensed bartender there the whole time, not training people, okay? Because I thought that was our requirement, and that's what happened when they went to the golf course.
No, hold on a second. Yes, Trustee Massey.
Mr. Treasurer.
Right, so we're not going to get an answer then, right?
Well, my comment is, Mr. Treasurer, now you're dipping into a policy that we're going to discuss at the next meeting.
Well, yeah, but that affects this, because if we say yes and it's against our policy, why would you do it?
No, because we're going, well, let me put it another way. 9 times out of 10, we're going to revise the policy, regardless.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not going to be the same policy. Okay, so at that time, we will discuss that. We approving her,
I know we're trying to approve.
We're approving Scott, we're approving, the way I look at this, we're approving Scott to train the volunteers, to get Scott's license to train bartenders.
Right, but see.
And then this program.
The only reason it went to the other places was because there wasn't a licensed bartender. Yeah, because we voted it down. It had to go to the Elks, it had to go to the other one because the board didn't want to do it. But why did they go there? That's exactly why they went there.
It was.
So all I'm saying is if you can have a licensed bartender there, I would be okay with it.
Can I ask one real quick clarification? So you just want one present, because we have, several people handing out the little cups to people as they run by. I can't have, 20 licenses.
No.
You just want one.
We used
like
to
one
do that at the
presiding?
Crim.
Okay.
We did that at the Crim, handed out.
Yeah.
Superintendent Limita?
So when it was moved, one of the issues had to do with where the liability would sit, whether with the Parks and Rec Commission, because it was the Parks and Rec Commission sponsoring this thing, getting a one-day license, and that's why talking with our liability carrier, they want, the liability carrier would prefer, because we even discussed briefly having Friends of Grand Blanc Parks and Recreation get the license. Our liability carrier is much more comfortable with this being a township event where we'll get the one-day license. We're in control. We have the control over, with Supervisor Bennett providing the training for the volunteers who would be serving beer. And so that addressed his liability concerns from Mr. Bucko. He doesn't have, as long as we're controlling those aspects of it, he doesn't have any liability concerns of the event being taking place.
So I just have a question for Mr. Laddie. So Mr. Laddie, was that going to be sufficient then, since it's in the township's license? And then, but we still don't have a licensed bartender in this designated area. The other part I can understand because they're not getting very much, and then they're running another part, so that's not going to add up to enough. I'm worried about when they go inside the fence. Then if there isn't a licensed bartender, then we're more liable, I would think, than just have volunteers that are trained.
Well, I understand your point, and it seems counterintuitive, right? For the township to now hold the license, for the township to embrace the liability, but this is coming from our insurance carrier, and the steps that he's laid out for us for his level of comfort, has been approved by them. And so my feeling is this, that if they are on board and we follow their recommendations and they are saying that we're fully covered in this event, I think as long as we meet their requirements, then we're better off than we were before.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And so I understand exactly what you're saying, but I'm going to take the word of our insurance carrier because they're the guys that are going to answer the questions,
Okay.
if any come in.
And so that's their stipulation that if they're trained by a licensed bartender, that's sufficient, right?
Whatever, we're going to do whatever satisfies them. And if
But I
they
mean,
say-
that's the specification that they said, right?
That's,
I mean, you're saying our supervisor's gonna train him because he's licensed or whatever, and the insurance company said that was okay.
Yeah, our
Right.
liability carrier isn't the one who asked about it. Mr. Bennett volunteered to provide the training.
I know, but does our
And
insurance
so when
carrier
we
know what's
when we-
happening?
Yeah, when we discussed it with Mr. Bucko, we provided him all the details,
Okay.
including the fact that Supervisor Bennett was going to be providing the tips training to any of the volunteers.
Okay, fine, I just wanna make sure that they're aware of what we did, okay?
Chief Wiles, did you want to say anything on this and set up the dates so we can have a police presence later in the day, or?
I guess my only thought on the event would be not with the event itself, but making sure that alcohol is being served in accordance with the law.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, I was just in the process of looking it up. If we receive a license in the township name after a certain date, which we obviously are, because this is coming up on a date, the supervisor by the law, not the township supervisor, the supervisor of the event has to be TIPS or TAMS trained, which is good, if that can be done. There is no need in the law, if I remember correctly, to have every person trained. That's, icing on the cake if that is the case. But the supervisor of that event who's overseeing the alcohol distribution has to be trained in TIPS or TAMS.
And just to remind everybody in attendance and viewers at home, how many incidents have we had with alcohol at the park?
I'm not aware of any.
None. Not saying that it can't happen.
Sure.
But with our great police and our great staff out there, that's where we're at. So we've heard the motion, we've heard, yes.
So I have a couple of questions. First, what is the date being proposed for this?
We're looking at, it's gonna be either the second or last Friday in June.
Okay.
I'm thinking the 26th.
Yeah, so I guess I would like to kind of maybe propose an amendment to this to kind of narrow down the time frame that we would approve this. Because right now it's just kind of open, how many times and how many, and what time of year, etc. So if we could narrow that down, I'd appreciate it. And this is going to be like a one-day event, right?
It's in the evening, yeah.
Okay, fine.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any more
And
discussion?
there has to be a license on one day too, so.
Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll
Go
see you
for it,
then.
Aaron.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Aaron.
Could I have Superintendent Lima, can I have the alcohol in the parks policy set on the agenda for next,
Yep,
at the
got
end
it.
of this month? The board will consider a motion to approve the conflict of interest policy regarding the CDBG funds or the HUD funding. Superintendent Limita?
These next two items actually deal with the conflict of interest policy. First, the motion, and then the next one is a resolution for the provisions. This has to do with remaining eligible for CDBG projects. And so we had a recent audit by the County Metropolitan Planning Commission and going through all of our CDBG expenditures. We also picked up, obviously, the senior center and Parks and Recreation, and all of that was audited. The result of that audit showed that we didn't have on file the conflict of interest policy and the resolution. So this is to correct something that we should have had, and quite frankly, there's a possibility that when we first started to work with the Metropolitan Planning Commission in regards to CDBG, that we would have passed this policy in order to be eligible, but we cannot find any record of that and don't know what year that would have been. We're unable to locate it. So they've asked us, in order to correct the findings of the audit and to be eligible for CDBG funds in the future, that we first approve the policy and then consider the resolution, which is the next item on your agenda.
You've heard the motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
You've heard the motion, the approval, the second. Is there any more discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You are asking me to vote for something that I don't even know what the policy is. I haven't read the policy. So before I can vote for it, I'd like to read the policy. The policy was not provided.
It's in the packet.
I didn't see the policy. So I cannot vote for it at this time because I didn't see the policy. Because we have been in the past, and I'm going to say this loudly, we have been asked to vote for things that were not in the package. That's a fact.
Well, this one is in the packet, Joe.
Mr. Massey.
So I guess my question is, where did this policy, where did this policy come from?
It's provided by the Genesee County Metropolitan Planning Commission.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is this policy the same policy that's adopted by other municipalities?
Correct.
Verbatim?
As far as I know, this is what they provided to us, so I'm assuming that it is.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So a question to the superintendent. So based on what I heard from you about the audit, so that's the first audit that has happened since you've been here?
No, we've actually had other audits from the Metropolitan Planning Commission in regards to expenditures for CDBG funds, but this is the first time that they actually came in and sat down and went through all of the paperwork. Again, the CDBG is really run by Supervisor Bennett and Administrative Assistant Megan Gilman, who work through all of the CDBG, and they are the points of contact. They've come and audited other expenditures, so typically when you've used funds for CDBG projects and you have to record it, they will actually go out, and if it was a purchase out at Parks and Recreation, for example, they'll go out and verify that those items still exist, that they're marked with a tag that shows that this was a CDBG funded project. So they do come back and periodically audit. This is the first time that I'm aware of since I've been here where they went through, and again, we picked up all of Parks and Recreation and Senior Center, which a great deal of our CDBG funding goes to and has in the past. We picked those up this year, so it's the first time that we had to gather all of the paperwork for those expenditures, which prior to this, were not ours. They would have been audited separately. They would have gone directly to Parks and Recreation or the Senior Center. So this is the first one I'm aware of where they went through this complete, and these were the findings. These are the only two findings after everything they went through, was that we needed to have a policy adopted. And again, I would find it hard to believe that it wasn't adopted at some point in the past, but because I could find no record of it, it would have happened before I was here. They asked us to just adopt it, to fix the only findings of the audit that were incomplete were these two items.
So this also is the same as E?
It is. You have to approve the policy first, so that we have a policy that exists in regards to CDBG, and then the resolution. So the first thing you'd have to do is you're being asked to adopt the actual policy that was provided by them, and then you're being asked to approve the resolution that the Board of Trustees is adopting the written standard regarding conflict of interest, and then there's a statement in there that says there's no conflict of interest of any member of this board with the CDBG funding.
Okay. Superintendent is this a time-sensitive issue that has to be approved tonight?
I can't answer that question. I don't know, because again, this is really a Supervisor Bennett and a Megan Gilman item that they work on, that they're in charge of. I'm not in charge of CDBG. But I know it was a finding of that we're not in non-compliance right now with CDBG. So would it jeopardize our next payment from CDBG, which is a reimbursement? A couple of things on CDBG. We're using the funds for Howe Road this year, and we use the funds to offset a portion of the senior center director's salary. Would it put any of those in jeopardy? I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question.
Well,
Chairman Thomas?
Yes, sir.
This may be kind of conflating the two issues here, but on item E, before we get to the resolution, if we are busy adopting a policy now, I would assume that the resolution would reference that policy, right?
It does.
Right.
It does not. It references specific language. So I wouldn't be, I mean, if we're going to approve a policy, that's fine by me, but the resolution, I think, should then reference the policy itself. Otherwise, you know, we're kind of duplicating effort here, and we have an opportunity to actually
do it correctly.
Well, duplicate things and have things be different, a policy being different than the resolution.
Okay.
Whereas if we have a single policy, we reference the policy in the resolution, then we're going to be consistently going aligned.
Okay. When you keep on saying that the CDBG funds are Supervisor Bennett's and his assistant Megan Gilman's loan responsibility, so you're telling me that he makes the decisions where the CDBG funds go and we don't?
No, the board makes the decisions on how CDBG funds are, but Mr. Bennett is authorized, we have to authorize somebody, the board authorizes somebody to be in charge and execute the Community Development Block Grant Program. And this board has selected the supervisor. It's been that way since long before I got here.
Okay. So this board didn't appoint Mr. Bennett. Prior boards have.
This board has.
Okay.
You authorize Supervisor Bennett to execute all of the Community Development Block Grant.
So I would feel much more comfortable to putting this off until the last Tuesday of the month, so Trustee Massey would have some time that he could go through and he could familiarize himself with the motion and the resolution. I also agree with what Trustee Mansour is saying about, if we're going to do this, let's do it right and let's do it one time with the where the resolution should use the same language as the motion. And that's the way that I'm going to vote. Yes.
I just had a question. I know that the conflict of interest policy was basically coming from CBG funds, right? It's a basic policy that's
From
we're
the
using
county.
from the county.
Both the resolution
Right.
and the
Both the resolution
policy came
and
from.
they both came from them. So I don't
Metropolitan
think
Plan.
there's a conflict, because unless they've been doing it wrong for everybody.
I don't necessarily see the harm in referring to the policy and the resolution, and I'm happy to add it in there.
You could just add it, right?
Yeah.
We could revise the resolution
Yeah,
to
just add
reference
it.
the policy.
Right, just reference the policy. You could do that, Mr. Ladd?
Sure.
Okay. And I didn't
I don't know
get,
if Trustee Massey is, I mean, if he's okay with that, but that's how I would improve the resolution.
The only thing that I have a concern about is that our chairperson is not here and he's in charge of it. So we only hearing from the superintendent. So we can't hold the superintendent responsible for the information that he provide to us, that he provides to us. So I would rather have the person, at least one of the persons that are working on this, present.
That's a good point.
To make comments.
That's a good point.
yeah, I understand. That sounds like a good idea. The only question I have is the policy and the resolution was given to us from the county.
Not the resolution.
Yeah.
And we're gonna,
Yeah,
they said both the resolutions, and we're gonna amend it so that Mr., he's gonna be okay, so I don't see, Scott's over this, but he can't change these policies. It's coming from the county. Is that my correct or right,
Well,
Mr.
so
Maslad?
that, I don't think that issue is what's stopping you. I think that, I don't think they would object to us referencing the policy they created in the resolution they created. I think that'd be fine.
You're being quiet.
So now your question is, do you want to move forward without Supervisor Bennett here or not?
Right, and I don't think he can actually change that.
No, we can change it.
I mean, you can change your part, but he's not gonna change the actual, conflict of interest policy.
Hearing the discussion, I'm going to call for the motion. So we're going to look at the motion first, and then we'll get into the resolution. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed?
No.
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 Okay.
So the motion fails. Going into the resolution, the board will consider
no point
a
in doing it
resolution
then.
to adopt the conflict of interest provisions for the Genesee County Community Planning Commission CDBG projects.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would think that based on the item we just voted on, 2 to 3, it's not there's no reason to even act on the resolution.
Right. Attorney Laddie?
I agree.
Okay, so we'll move that to when Supervisor Bennett, the person that's in charge of this, comes back to the board. Item F, the board will consider a resolution to approve a liquor license for 2020 Ally Challenge.
Support her motion.
I'll support the motion.
Support? Anyone second it?
I moved it, he supported it.
Okay.
And it's a roll call, Mr. Chair.
Superintendent Limita?
So it's the same resolution that this board has seen for the prior two Ally Challenge events. It's to approve the liquor license for the 2020 Ally Challenge at Warwick Hills Golf and Country Club.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Discussion?
Yes.
So I'm looking at the, I think the website for the Ally Challenge, and it seems to be that the timing for that is between July 30th and August 2nd. And as I read the resolution applies from the time frame from July 27th through September the 3rd. And I'm wondering why there is an additional month on the resolution.
Is that my pacemaker?
You're still talking, it's okay.
I know
The
they
question
changed- I know
threw
they
me
changed- I
to
know they changed-
Superintendent Limita.
On the actual resolution.
I know that the Ally Challenge changed some of their dates, so it possibly could be that. It could have been a typo.
It's not going to be a month and 2
Right,
weeks.
right. They moved it back, because last year they had it later, and I thought they were gonna move it back, and I wasn't sure which way it went. Because somebody said it changed, but I didn't see it officially.
Yeah, do you have your phone?
He's
What
going
is it? Let's
September
search it.
3rd instead of
Or your
August
computer?
3rd.
I already searched it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So if it's a week liquor license, I'm good with that, whatever week it is.
only a week.
No, if you read the
Right,
resolution,
we need to change it.
fine.
Somebody type this in because these forms come blank from the state of Michigan. And so it's simply
So
a
can we,
matter
I
of
guess,
changing the dates as you said.
can we amend the resolution to narrow
You
it
can
to the
change
dates
this
of the Ally
local
Challenge?
approval, that's it.
Okay, so what would you like to see the resolution, how would you like to see the resolution read, Trustee Mansour?
What's that?
The resolution actually shows it from the July 27th through August 3rd. It's the actual application that they had the dates listed incorrectly to September 3rd.
So it says the 27th through August,
Through August 3rd.
So it's
on the resolution.
so the application's incorrect, but the resolution is
Correct.
okay.
If you'll agree with this, let's change September 3rd to October, or to August 3rd.
Right.
Fine.
Because these usually come in blank anyway.
And if
Well-
it's incorrect, we'll take a look at it next.
That's fine.
Point of order, is that okay with the
Yes.
folks who made the resolution?
Yes.
Yes, I'm
And
fine
a
with it.
second?
Absolutely.
Okay. This is a resolution?
Mr. Mansour?
Yes.
Mr. Guzak?
Yes.
Mr. Massey?
Yes.
Myself, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It's approved.
The board will consider, well, right now I'd like to take a 15-minute break.
Okay.
All right. 15 minutes, not 10?
No.
Not 5?
Stop.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. The board will consider a motion to approve the road construction agreement with Genesee County Road Commission for Howe Road with the township participation at $76,000 and authorize the township supervisor to execute all related contracts and agreements.
Make the motion.
There's a motion.
Support.
There's a second. Discussion. Actually, Superintendent Limita.
So you're being asked, and this was actually kind of unique, if when we put our road 50/50 allocation funds together last year, we were going to do Howe Road. And then the county came to us and they had an opportunity with Wakefield Road that if we shifted our allocation funds over to Wakefield Road last year, that it was that they had been told by the Metropolitan Planning Commission that they could then free up the CDBG funds that we still had remaining, and we could use that CDBG fund allocation to do Howe Road. So rather than just be able to get one road accomplished, which we had planned in our original road improvement plan last year, we were able to shift those funds to Wakefield, get Wakefield done, and then push Howe back 1 year, and then utilize $152,000 of CDBG funds that we did not have earmarked because the projects that the board had approved had been rejected by the Metropolitan Planning Commission. And then they're the ones who came up with this plan to use the $152,000 on Howe Road. So we basically can get this whole thing done with $76,000 of our allocation funds to get all of Howe Road paved.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Clerk Lynn.
Understanding, Mr. Limita, the discussion we've just had on the motion and the resolution regarding the conflict of interest, is this going to in any way delay action on Howe Road since we're using CDBG monies?
Oh, I doubt it, seeing that, you're only talking less than 2 weeks. Or what are we talking for our next board meeting? A
The
weekend?
24th, I believe, would be the date, so.
So less than
Okay, I'm just wanting to be very
one
careful.
business week.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have any,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I have a
trustee
concern.
Massey?
I have a question for the entire board. Can you tell me that Howe Road is worse than some of the other roads in the township, or streets in the township?
The person that I'd probably have to ask would be Director Sears. Or,
No, I would like to weigh in at this point.
Yeah.
So last meeting, Supervisor Bennett passed out a packet of information that gave Pazer ratings pretty much across the township roads, 36 pages worth. In this particular document, Howe Road is shown on it, and it is split between poor and very poor, like the note says here from Director Sears. However, on 25 of the 36 other pages, there are roads that are rated in worse Pazer condition than this road. And so I think Supervisor Bennett, when he passed this out, it was the intention for us to have this because we were going to use this in a way to prioritize what roads we were going to go after. And again, some of the ones that are in here are neighborhood roads, which will require special assessment district like we are doing. But I'm very, very curious on how this Howe Road jumped to the top of it, and if we're driven by our priorities are driven by the county or by what we're seeing as the needs of our township based on Pazer ratings.
I believe we did, I'm not sure if we made a motion but it was pretty well spelled out that that's how we're going to fix the township roads is what, by those raising. Director Sears?
Good evening. I can't go one meeting without talking to you, so I just thought I'd make a couple comments. Behind the scenes a little bit that you don't have, there's a laundry list of local roads. And keep in mind, the Pazer, I did look through the packet that Scott gave you, and those Paisley ratings are not updated.
Oh, then we should get rid of them. We'll just get rid of this because what you just said, they're not worth it.
They just gave us those.
Okay. There are a couple
2
roads.
weeks ago.
Yeah, there are a couple roads on there like
Here,
Pollock
time out a
Road.
second. So who just gave them to us, Scott or the road commission? Okay.
I just noticed a couple discrepancies. For the majority, the residential roads, stuff like that, it is correct. There's a couple roads in there like Pollock Road that the majority of it was already paved. And then there's a laundry list of roads that Consumers Energy is going to be paving, local roads. We've done, since the road commission has increased our allocation, we've done a really good job of updating our local road system. There's a few bad ones that we have pointed out with the road commission that they've negotiated, such as portions of Porter Road, Reed Road, in that area, local roads that haven't been touched. There's portions of Cook Road that we're making plans for next year, and there's some other ones that Consumers Energy is going to be repairing in conjunction with the Saginaw Trail Pipeline. Howell Road was approved by the Township Board last year, and like Dennis said, we took it off because Wakefield Road became the priority at the time, only because we could use CDBG funding on Howell Road, where we can't use CDBG funding on any other local road. So the monies that the Genesee County Metropolitan Commission previously did not approve for some of our projects, they are allowing us to use on Howell Road with the road commission's help. This is why that project came forward this year.
Well, Director Sears, I think Trustee Mansour and, well, myself, I'll speak for myself, we were told that we were going to go by the Paisley rating.
Sure.
Now, if I remember right, I don't have it right in front of me, but I think Howell Road was rated at a 2 by the county, and you had it rated at a 3?
I think it's split between a 2 and a 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there are some ones in the township, but this is our only opportunity to use CDBG money.
No other roads can
We can't use them on any other road.
Right, so that's.
How is this one
Hold
road?
on, one person at a time, please.
There's a very small.
Hold on.
I apologize. I was going to ask.
No, Trustee Mansour, I didn't hear your question.
I'm sorry. I'm sure Director Sears is about to answer. How is it that this one road out of all of these is the only one that can qualify for CDBG
Correct.
support?
Genesee County Metropolitan Commission and HUD classify only a small portion of the township as below the poverty limits that qualify to use CDBG money. Previously, you remember projects we did before in the presidential streets off of Fenton Road. That was the
100%.
previous. That is no longer our area. That shifted to along Maple Road. Howell Road happens to be part of that project in that area. So previously we were able to use it at the library. We were able to use it on other special assessment districts. We can't do that anymore. They're not approving that stuff. This is a project that they approved for us.
When you said that they're not approving, that means the county commissioners are not approving it?
Genesee County Metropolitan and HUD. The HUD guidelines don't allow us to use the money there anymore.
Who's the Genesee County?
Metropolitan Planning Commission.
Okay.
Who oversees CDBG.
Yes.
I have a question. Since there's a discrepancy about Howell Road, I got a question. Can you tell me what kind of homes price-wise on Howell Road versus the other road?
I don't have that information, Mr. Massey, because it's all calculated and determined by Genesee County and HUD. They determine those boundaries and we have no say in it at all.
But the first thing that you said caught my attention. And I cannot vote for this tonight. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the chairperson has to be here.
Okay.
Whether it came out sincerely or whether you spoke or not, I'm taking your word for it. That piece of paper that the chairperson gave us is not worth 2 cents. Based on what you just said. You said there's a lot of inconsistency in there, discrepancies in there. Okay? So why should we vote on something that you have already told us that is not accurate?
Well,
I'm not asking you that
Oh,
question.
I apologize. I just wanted to explain.
You can explain if
Yeah.
if you feel comfortable explaining.
Absolutely. The Pazer ratings that you have, maybe I should explain more what I was talking about. The Pazer ratings that we have don't have some of the previous projects that we've completed in there as updated. So what you've seen, like I mentioned before, Pollock Road, you'll notice Pollock Road is probably a 1. Wakefield Road is probably a 2 or 3. Those were paved last year. So there's not going to be many discrepancies in there, but there are some. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention so you have all the information that you need to make a decision.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah,
Director.
absolutely.
But I'm concerned that the chair intentionally, I'll assume, gave us information to mislead us.
No, I
Okay,
don't
hold
think
on.
he did that at all. Absolutely
You
not.
can't speak for him. You don't know what he had in mind.
Hold on, guys, hold on.
I can speak to that. I was at the meeting at the road commission 2.5 weeks ago when they handed us that packet of local roads and said this is the most updated one. And it was the same day of the meeting, and then Mr. Bennett made copies for the board the very day that he received it from the road commission. And we're told by the road commission that this was the most updated Pazer ratings.
What we
they
need to
had.
do, Superintendent Lehman, is we need to have Director Sears go through it, cross out all the stuff that we've already done, and then pass it out to us again, right?
I mean, I don't know what you saw in there. Like I said, we just got this one
Wakefield,
from-
which was done last year.
I can do that. I tell you, the road commission will have an updated copy for us by the end of the summer, because they're doing Pazer ratings this year.
Yep.
But they don't do it every year, and they don't update this on a consistent basis.
Okay, but this is I don't want to be argumentative. but
Sure,
this
no.
is-
Yeah,
this
we
is
don't.
spring, and this is when
I understand.
we need to make these decisions, right?
And that's why we
can't take more than 5 minutes.
We went through this project, over and over again, and we've been through several meetings with the road commission.
So this Metropolitan Planning Commission, if one of us went there and said, you're telling me that the only CBDG grant funds that we're allowed to use in our township is Howe Road, they'd be, yup.
Well, I think they awarded some to the fire department for,
I'm talking about for roads.
For roads, correct. They're gonna tell you how road is the road that we can use it on.
Excuse me, Chairperson
Yes,
Thomas.
sir.
I'm one of the 2 representatives from the township to the Metropolitan Planning Alliance where they go through this. And I would be happy to bring that up at our meeting. I think it's the 15th, 16th, 17th of this month, whatever it is, usually the middle of the month on Wednesday. So,
Sure,
but I would find that very interesting as well, because I'm looking at the Google Maps on this, and there are some pretty nice estates on
very
this
nice
road
estates
to
on that
consider this for use from a community development block grant. Seems a little. I really would like to understand their criteria for that.
On the west-handed side of Howe Road between Maple and Hill, there's some very, very, very nice estates there.
Yeah, nice. Pools. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I would hate.
Well, hold on, please. Clerk Lane?
My question is, can this be delayed, Mr. Sears, until the last meeting, or is this going to delay this road being done this year?
I would have to find out from the road commission on that. I know they're finalizing their projects for the year. They have a certain amount they're spending in engineering every year, and I think we're talking previously about the last project that's going to be included for the year. I believe this is accounted for in that. So I can't speak for the road commission. I know they have to take this to the actual road commissioners for approval after it comes to the township board.
You know we're talking less than 7 working days.
Yeah, I understand 100%. Yeah.
But sometimes
It will depend on when their next road commission, I don't know what the road commission meeting schedule is, but unfortunately Richard's not here anymore, but depending on when their schedule is, because they have us approve these so that it goes to their meeting next for approval to then move it forward. So it's hard to say. I don't know if they've got one that they were waiting on this information. I just am not aware of that.
Trustee Mansour?
Yes.
Your meeting is next week, early part of next week.
I think there was a note that came out on email today, Mr. Mansour, that the meeting was canceled.
Well,
because of the
then-
virus, but I would ask that you
Yeah,
verify it.
I'll verify that. It's usually the middle of the month Wednesday.
Trustee Massey,
Yes.
you had a question?
Well, my concern is that we need to table this until the next meeting. Because if we give trustee Al Mansour adequate time to do his homework regarding the issue, and then if we have to call a special meeting, we just call a special meeting, come back and vote on it.
I don't necessarily have to wait for that meeting. I
Right.
certainly can call and get set up a time to speak with them in advance.
Oh, okay, okay.
So Superintendent Lemata, I don't feel comfortable asking this for Director Sears, but could you have somebody get us from that 34-page sheet that was passed out by Supervisor Bennett? Can we have that updated through our township records and emailed to us, please?
I mean, we can make the request to the road commission, but like I said, when
No.
they handed it to us, they said this is the most recent one, if that's
Well,
what
we
you're-
know that it's not because
We can notate what roads have been paved and what haven't, but
Yeah,
I
you're only talking
can't,
5
I
or
just
6
can't
roads.
give, I just can't give you the current Pazer ratings, because I
fine.
can't do Pazer ratings.
Because you're gonna pull out
I can we can notate it, and
you're gonna pull out the projects that we did in the last year.
I can notate it, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have any discussion, concerns?
Just one thing, just so the board knows, the CDBG funds, when we put our CDBG requests together back in, I think it was at the start of 2019, and we put all of our projects together and the board had authorized those, the $152,000 that's available here is because that's what was left over in CDBG funds that we had been awarded that was rejected by the Metropolitan Planning Commission. They rejected the vast majority of the items that we moved forward. And that's where this money came from. If we give up the 152,000, like it doesn't transfer anywhere else, they told us where it could be spent. And it's just I just want you guys to be aware of that. And if Trustee Mansour is going to talk with them about, especially from the Metropolitan Planning Commission, they didn't have any place else that we were allowed to spend the money. We didn't have any other eligible projects to spend the money. So if Trustee Mansour is having that conversation, that might be a good question to get for the board's information is like, is there any place else that they would say that we would be authorized to spend those funds?
Superintendent Lima, are you talking about the big list that we made? We said, oh, we have to come up with a project list in the next 3 weeks or we're not going to receive our money for 2019.
Well, we
Is that
opened
the
it
list?
up, we took feedback, we put in as many projects as we can.
But that's the list, right?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
the
the
one
list.
that you're talking about? But
Correct.
that was for money for 2019, wasn't it?
You get awarded it for multiple
was it?
years. You don't get it for just 1 year. You get multiple.
3-year projects.
Yep.
Okay. Is there any more discussion?
But, Mr. Chair, we have a motion for item G, and because again of the timeframes that happen with community development block grant monies.
Right, I'm going to
and
call
the-
for the vote.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we didn't fall into one of those timeframes where we lose the money and it goes somewhere else.
So we're talking 7
I know,
business
but that-
days. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Let me sort of make a comment here. I understand what Clerk Lane is saying very clearly, but it seems like to me, 3 or 4 days is not going to make a difference either way. So Trustee Al Mansour has already stated that it would be only, I assume, a few days. So it would be less than 7 days before he has an answer. And it's that critical, we can call a board meeting, special board meeting.
I don't have a problem with that. Yes, Treasurer Guzak.
Yes, that's very correct. The only problem is if we can get it done in 3 days and they, if I understand this correctly, the only place they're gonna give us this money is for Howe Road. Anything that's on there, whether it's correct or not, they're not gonna give it for any other road. So if we want the 76,000, we're gonna have to do it. And if Al can get a hold of them and gets it real quick, we call a special meeting and we miss it by 1 day, the money's gone.
Well,
And we've
So-
lost 76,000 and
Yes,
how won't get
trustee.
complete?
lost
152,000.
Okay.
Okay, trustee Mansour?
So the issue is really this. Okay, so we miss it by a day or two, so how come we're up against the wall and everything is at stake for this being brought to this meeting at this day?
But I thought.
I mean, so we've had this money rolled over from the previous year, right? And so now we're at crunch time apparently, and we're, we've introduced, Supervisor Bennett introduced this idea of PASER ratings to allocate our funding, and then we come with this project that seemingly is not in alignment with that. So, and it seems to be with 1 day or 2 days, or we lose everything. So I don't understand the timing of these.
Let me ask a question. Superintendent Limita, can you answer that question?
Sure. We brought this to the board's attention last year when we changed when they first gave us the ability last year, and we switched over to Wakefield Road and said, we're not going to do Howe, we're going to do Wakefield Road when you guys authorized that, because we had the ability to use CDBG funds. We found that out last year, and I don't remember, June last year maybe, when that information came out. And then when we finalized this year's road projects was 2 weeks ago, or whenever the meeting, 2 weeks ago approximately, when Mr. Bennett handed that out to you,
Excuse me, what meeting was this and who was it there?
Right, the day that Mr. Bennett handed it out, that was when we came back the same day from the road commission reviewing all of the projects, and one of the things is because they were also working with Consumers Energy, which is going to spend over, I forgot, but it's incredible $100,000 in our township. We're actually, Grand Blanc Township, with the plan that the road commission presented to us at that time, we're getting over $1 million in road repairs, upgrades in Grand Blanc Township. All of that was presented and finalized to us on the day of our last meeting, the day of the last board meeting. But we have known about this project since last June.
But I know, but it seems like I understand what trustee means.
Yep.
Trustee Massey?
I have a question, because I feel as though the superintendent is dodging the main question that was asked by the trustee. And let me be more blatant about the question. When did you learn about what you have on the agenda tonight?
Last
Okay,
June.
hold on.
We discussed it
Go through
last
me.
June.
Guys, go through me, please.
Yes.
Yes, please
I
go
asked
through
him
me.
a question.
Yes, sir.
When did he learn about it that's on the agenda tonight?
When did you decide to put it on the agenda
Yes.
and it had to be done this tonight?
Well, it came to me from Director Sears on March 3rd for this agenda, but we had, whatever the date of the last meeting was when we had our meeting with the Genesee County Road Commission that reviewed all of the road projects that they were proposing for 2020.
Was that a set meeting or was it an emergency meeting?
Nope, that was a meeting that I wish I knew the date. I could.
That's okay. But it was normal meeting.
Correct.
I'm just voting to table.
Well, it just seems, I can understand what everyone's saying, that it's always the last second decisions. Huh? I'm sorry, Treasurer. Use that?
Yeah, I don't think it is. I mean, last year, we wanted to do this road, and they said, no, we're gonna fix this other, you can fix Wakefield, and we'll do that over there. We knew that a year ago, so I was all in favor of it. And it sounds like nowhere else are they gonna give us the 76,000 for a road. So why are you turning down 76,000?
I don't think anybody's turned it down. I think Trustee Mansard.
I know they wanna do their due diligence, but I'm afraid if you do the due diligence, and I think they've got a new phaser plan now that says this is what we wanna do, but the county's telling us, forget the phaser
I'm not
plan.
gonna argue with you, Trustee.
Well, I'm just pointing out.
That's why we all have votes.
Okay, I'm just trying to explain why I'm gonna vote the way I'm voting.
I'm listening.
No, you're interrupting.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Trustee.
It sounds like we've got no choice because 76,000 is gonna be lost, and hopefully it's not lost if Al can get it done quick enough. But if he doesn't get going quick enough, we lose 76,000. And so it can't go anywhere else. And I know the phaser's a new policy, which is a great idea, but the county trumped us and said, no, phaser's not gonna be that. The only place you're gonna do it is on Howe Road. So we either do it or we don't.
Okay, is there any more discussion? Okay, is this a resolution?
No, it's not, it's a motion.
Okay, call for the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Motion passes.
I tell you what, Mr. Chair, this won't be the last time they're gonna jam something down your throat. This is just the beginning of this mess.
The board will consider a motion to amend the 2020 capital budget by increasing the fire department's allocation $317,916, taking the increase from the 2021 capital budget to begin accepting bids for replacements of 30 scuba systems, 30 EA square cylinders, 13-inch additional masks, 2 rapid intervention team systems and other accessories such as batteries, battery chargers, and systems filling adapters. Do you want to go over this, Superintendent Limita, or the Chief Burdette?
The correction I have is in the agenda. It says calling for a motion, but it's actually a resolution to amend the special revenue funds budget.
Okay, so could you change that, Clerk Lynn?
No.
So moved. Chief Burdette.
Good evening. I apologize for, this is my mistake. I had it in for next year's budget to replace, but after reviewing the hydrostatic test dates on the cylinders, we need to take action for this year to have these replaced by the end of the year. We have 36 cylinders that are going to be out of hydrostatic test date by the end of this year, and then 36 at the beginning of next year, which is 100% of our cylinders. I'm asking for the approval to move the funds that we're going to ask for next year for $317,000, $317,916, to be put into 2020's capital budget for us to start the bid process to receive these.
Okay,
So moved, Mr. Chair.
there's a motion for the resolution. Is there support? Support for it?
Was that
Question?
Al?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, so I would like to
Who's
open up the questions for the chief first, and then we'll get into the funding for the apparatus. Trustee Mansour?
Yep. So Chief, when we say that we're going to amend the capital budget so that we can start to bid these out, when is the actual when's the actual cash transaction take place?
Well, this is giving me the approval to go ahead and request bids for replacing of them.
But the anticipation
For
is
the
this year.
anticipation of it, right. As far as a final dollar amount, I don't know what this
Right,
is.
but in terms of the timing of it, is it for this calendar year?
It's for this calendar year, yes.
Okay.
Right. If we don't do it, half of our cylinders will expire at their maximum right now.
That's fine. I have a question for the superintendent whenever everyone's done with the chief.
Superintendent Limita, through Al Mansour, through the Trustee Mansour.
So I see in the documentation that's in here that we're increasing the kind of the revenue for the department. We're increasing the expense for the department in 2020. The question I have is that if we are spending an additional 317, whatever the number is, in 2020 instead of 2021, I'm wondering what other capital that's coming out of, because we had a kind of a balanced capital spend for 2020 that now we're going to, we got to get the money from somewhere.
So it's coming from fund balance. We have our capital projects fund that we carry a fund balance in, and it's probably been 3 years actually since we've even put anything in there. But generally at the end of the year, what we'll look at when we take our fund balance and we take our general fund balance back down to the 12%, 12 to 15%, and like this year we put $1.6 million on OPEB. periodically we would put a couple $100,000 into our capital projects fund, and we keep that fund balance so that we generally know that we have about 3 to 4 years worth of capital projects expenditures, typical capital projects expenditures in there. This fund balance, so that fund balance is there. That's where the money's coming from. We're transferring it out. When you look at, we had it planned in our capital projects for next year, so that will come out and it will go into this year. But it's strictly coming out of that fund balance, getting transferred into the special revenue funds for the 2020 expenditure year, and that's why you have to do the amendment. It's actually coming from an existing fund balance.
Right. So the fund that is coming from is that noted here?
Yes. That's the capital, it's the special revenue fund, the capital fund. So when in order to transfer that money out, it's coming directly from our fund balance and becomes available for us for this year. And that other sheet that you were given, you can see that we're taking it from that appropriated fund balance from the capital projects fund and transferring it into the special revenue fund into the equipment fire department slot. So that's where the money's actually coming out of a fund balance and going into the current budget.
So could you state that on there? States coming from the fund balance to
Yep.
that? Would that help out?
That'd be perfect.
Would that be okay?
And that, if you look at the actual resolution down on about the fourth whereas, modifications will require the use of $317,916 of fund balance within the capital projects fund.
It doesn't say fund balance, it just says capital budget. So
No, it says fourth one down
fund balance.
of fund
Oh, okay.
balance
That's fine.
within the capital projects fund.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, isn't the I have a question. Superintendent, is the 317,916, isn't that the depreciation number?
No.
Okay, where's the funds for the depreciation? The 500,
This doesn't have anything to do with that.
okay, where does it show because we're not putting the depreciation towards the truck this year, right?
I didn't see fund.
Right?
This is here.
We're not purchasing a vehicle this year.
Right, so we don't have to spend that to depreciation dollar this year.
It's in your resolution. Okay.
Where's that money?
So those are the funds that get put into, your of capital projects. So when you think of where's our money coming from, how are we funding it?
The depreciation.
Right. So completely different than what you're thinking about for your annual budget and what we're doing with this expenditure.
Okay, so okay. Trustee Massey?
Yes. Next year, can you look at the fund balance? Do you have it written as such? You can look at the fund balance at the end of this year, and we can see what was brought back to, which was allocated for the upcoming year, but which was brought back to this year.
If there's any capital funds that weren't spent in the calendar year, and then it goes back into the fund balance, you mean, into the reserve fund balance?
No, here's what let me state his question. I probably asked the question the wrong way. I should have stated his question first. A chief said that he was going to order it next year, but due to the condition of the cylinders and et cetera, he decided to order it this year. So next year, when we do the budget at the end of the year for next year, will we be able to look at the fund balance and see that the chief spent money that he was going to spend in 2021, which we allocated in 2020?
You'll be able to see it on the CIP document itself, because that capital improvement plan that's accompanied with your budget, you'll see that we took that out of 2021 and moved that into a 2020 expenditure. And if you want to just look at the fund balance, anytime the treasurer could provide this to the board on any monthly basis of exactly where we're sitting at on a fund balance. But if you want the year-end fund balance of what we had in the capital projects fund, $2 million in the capital projects fund as a reserve balance, the board can certainly have that information at any time, and you can see that what we took out, what we did through appropriations into the budget and what we were going to spend, and that's Yeah, I mean, you can track that even with as we move forward, our year-to-dates, you can see what was spent on capital funds, what we put in there in anticipation from the budget, and match that up on the monthly budget to actual reports. We can even show you there what was spent and what wasn't spent.
Whom should we ask?
You can get it from, I mean, the treasurer can provide you the fund balance information, or the finance department can provide you with the fund balance information. I mean, it's what we have in those reserve funds, like what's our general fund balance, what's our DPW water balance, what's our DPW sewer balance, what's our, I mean, any one of those, you guys can have that report on what that balance is at a snapshot on any given day.
I think I'm getting at what Trustee Al Mansour asked when he asked, do you have an estimated time frame that actually cash dollars will be paid out? Okay, so that doesn't mean anything until the actual cash dollars are paid out, right? The actual amount.
Yeah, I mean, you're transferring it over there so that it can be spent. You're authorizing him to move forward with the RFP and the purchase. The purchase, once he gets the RFPs out, it's going to have to come back to you for board approval for the expenditure. We're saying right now, can we do this budget amendment to move this forward so that we can purchase it in 2020 instead of 2021?
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
So, again, the depreciation dollars for the fire department for the year 2020, because it's not going for a vehicle, that money's going to be used for the capital funds, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on this? Trustee Mansour?
Okay.
Anyone else?
No. Mr.
Call for the
Mansour?
resolution.
Yes.
Mr. Guzak?
Yes.
Mr. Massey?
Yes.
Myself, yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Approved.
Item I, the election stipend. Can I get a motion for this?
I make a
Okay, and a second?
support.
Okay, you've heard the motion, so would you like to speak on this?
Well,
Clerk Wayne?
I provided you gentlemen with an outline of what occurred with our presidential primary on Monday. We had a 35% showing during this election, adding both the absentee ballots and the people that voted at the polls. I think things went smoothly. We haven't been called down to the county yet, but they have another 1 or 2 days of still auditing all the other municipalities. But I was asked that in the future, if things went after 10 o'clock, that could not authorize a stipend that had to come back for board approval. And we went till 12:30, and so I'm requesting for the election inspectors an additional $25, and for the chair and co-chair $50 because of the time that was involved. And I also wanted to remind you that the costs for this election are being paid for by the state, and so even though we will be getting refunds from the state, usually in August, but this would be a reimbursable expense from the state.
And doesn't the election committee get a little kiss too?
No.
Okay, is there any discussion, more discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say that this is a recognition, I think, when you have people that accept a role, like an election person who accepts it not knowing really what the end of their day is going to look like. But when we do ask them to go above and beyond what a normal expectation would be, that and spend more time and more effort, that it is normal to recognize that with some additional compensation. So it's no different than any other person who's working here on behalf of the municipality.
Mr. Mansour, our inspectors and our chairs love their duty, but it is a long day because you don't sleep the night before and you're very tired by the end of the day.
What are we bringing up to the board
to ask for the increase of the budget for your printing expenses for...
They have to be taken care of.
Okay. Okay, this is a motion, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Subject J, Treasurer's Financial Activity. We had some questions
Yep.
about this on the consent agreement, and I believe it was through
Me.
Trustee Mansour,
Yep.
and I'd like to bring that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep. So the question that I have is this was on page 31 of 38 here, and the account number is had to do with, I think, a purchase of a police vehicle. Account number is 497-100-981-300. So the question I had here is that we're purchasing a vehicle, $20,000 or $25,000, something like that. And right now, the line item I think shows. No, well, let me find it. 1 second.
Yoka came through at 37,000, so you may want to look for that.
Okay. 1 second here. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so a police vehicle, again, that was the right account number I gave, was shown as a $19,475 purchase. Is that correct? I think that's what it said.
The check that went through was 37,000 for Berger Chevrolet, and I can't remember. I think it was for a Tahoe. It wasn't for a. I think there was only one vehicle on it. I'd have to go back and pull that record.
I think
Yeah, that hasn't gone through yet.
Huh?
Superintendent Limit is looking for it.
Yeah.
You're talking about the one that we have that's on,
It's 37.
that you'd be approving this time. That's what the board approved last month for the purchase.
Again, that you have the account number there, but it's $19,475. The question I have here is that we have no amended budget for that. So it's showing up kind of as an abnormal. But we actually do have funds set aside, $141,000 set aside for police vehicle purchase. So I'm just wondering how this purchase isn't showing up underneath that account.
The $19,000 one was prior purchase. This one hasn't been booked yet, since it hasn't been approved yet, hasn't gone out. That'll show up differently, but the 19, I'm trying to get to the page you were referring
Yeah, it's
to.
the top of the page says 31 of 38.
Okay. And I'm guessing that it was booked under the...
Capital improvements or project funds, and yet we have sitting in police vehicles $141,500. So I'm wondering how we're...
Yeah, so that's booked incorrectly, obviously, because it doesn't have the budget for it. It should have been booked under, these are some of the, it had been put under the wrong line item number is my guess. I'll find out. It's one of those ones that we have to
it goes under the
clean up
dash
as we go
300 where
through.
we've allocated funds for it.
Right,
Got
it should have been under where we had the funds allocated, but I will make a point of that for finance.
Thank you. And then the other question that I had is above that, we had $22,414 allocated for, IT computer equipment. And we didn't have a budget fund balance for that either. Am I reading that correct?
Okay, I see where you're at, and again...
It's 30 page 30 of 38.
I know we have money allocated for the IT improvements. I'll have to, I can pull it up and send you the information.
Yeah,
back
pull
on
it, if we could get that adjusted so that it all kind of works out. We have a budget for stuff we're spending money on.
Yep.
Those are my two questions on this report. Thank you.
Is there any more discussion? Al, would you be comfortable?
Yep. With the explanations or fixes, I'd be happy to approve that.
Okay,
I'll support that motion.
we already did that.
No, we
No,
didn't,
you
because
didn't.
we
No,
pulled
you
it
didn't.
out of the consent agenda.
So I make a motion to accept the treasurer's financial activity report
Is there
with
support?
the adjustments. Yeah, with the amendments discussed here a minute ago.
Clerk Wing seconded.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. HIJK, Zoning Board of Appeals. No,
Yes, that was.
yeah, zoning, the board will consider a motion to appoint Ryan Thompson to the Zoning Board of Appeals as an alternate. Can I get a, okay, trustee Massey?
Yes. I so move.
Support
Support. This is the one that we pulled out
of the consent agenda.
of the consent agenda, Mr. Massey, trustee Massey.
Yes.
So,
Mr. Chair.
yes, sir.
My concern was, I didn't know that this was coming and it was put into the consent agenda. I didn't know we were gonna do an appointment, and I thought an appointment shouldn't be in the consent agenda unless the board had previously discussed it.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
kind of disrespectful too. I think it should have been an open agenda.
So I don't know what to say about it.
No, I
Does
understand.
anybody know this? Normally, when we do appointment, the practice is that the person is present.
Mr. Ryan
He was
Thompson
present.
was here,
He left.
but he left because it was put so far back on the agenda. He was sitting here.
I don't know.
Yeah, I saw him.
I would
saw
have
him.
introduced you had I.
Yeah, he was here.
He's been
He
on
was
the
the sitting
board,
vote.
township board before, and he's served in other capacities.
So this is,
So you guys feel comfortable with him?
Yes.
I think he just wants to get more involved and run for
When I
the
think-
trustee.
I think the Supervisor Bennett's the one that has to review these people and then present it to us, right?
You know, normally that's the case. With the ZBA though, that's not a specific
Oh,
requirement.
okay.
But it's certainly appropriate for him to make a recommendation.
Right, I didn't know if he did that, and he's just not here to defend himself, you know what I mean? Because I think he might have been the one that pushed it, because they needed an alternate, and they probably thought Ryan would be a good fit.
We did have an alternate leave.
Mr. Bush left, and so, for your information to the board,
Who's
Mr. Bush, he was the previous alternate to the township ZBA.
Okay,
He retired and moved out last year, and
Right.
his service term will end December of this year. So this is to fill his unexpired term to December of 2020. But we also have a chairperson, Jerry Ragsdale, whose term ended December of 2019, that I've been asking to get put on the agenda, and it's been delayed, and so
so we're gonna approve a
Alternate without doing.
alternate without having a chairperson?
Interesting.
the chairperson serves until he is officially appointed, but this is something that keeps getting postponed and for no reason that I've been told.
Okay. What do I do with this, Attorney Lang?
So who put it on the agenda?
Well, again, you had it on your consent agenda, you had it, you moved it to your regular agenda. It isn't, if you need more information, this is certainly one of the items that you could get more information on.
I would like to have more information, Attorney.
So to get this right, and I'd like to put in the minutes of this meeting, our supervisor does not have a chairperson for the zoning board of appeals?
He hasn't reappointed Mr. Ragsdale yet. And so the chairperson serves until his reappointment is made, or he appoints somebody else.
Okay. And then, all right, so you've heard the motion, you've heard a second.
Yes.
And is there more discussion?
Well,
Clerk Lane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. We need to have these people appointed so that when we have items coming up, and we have some major items that are coming up, we have a full board able to make the decision, because an appeal from the Zoning Board of Appeals is to court. It's not to this board. And if you don't have a full board making the decision, you're not having it function properly. So that's my concern.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I find it convenient for 2 or 3 items to be placed on the agenda, and the person that placed the items on the agenda, which I'm referring to is the chairperson, is absent.
Well, this was done, Mr. Chair.
That doesn't sit well with me.
Attorney Laddie, do you have any idea, any suggestions on how I should handle this?
Again, if you feel they needed more information regarding either the alternate position or Mr. Thompson, you certainly have the ability to postpone that if you want.
So do we put this in a, just
Put it on the next meeting. couldn't
put
we?
it on the next meeting, or do we turn it down, or what do we do?
No, please put it on the next agenda,
Right.
Unless you've made some decision to not.
Okay,
Right.
Clerk Lane?
The ZBA meets next week.
Oh, that's my question.
That's the reason I don't like putting these things off.
But he's an alternative, or an alternate, correct?
Yes.
But if he's an alternate,
We need-
he can
we
sit
ha-
on the meeting.
But they don't have a chair. Duly elected.
Let me-
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, these positions, ZBA is probably one of the most thankless of the commissions that we have here. And if Mr. Thompson is, again, has been a part of this board before, he's a longtime resident of the community. I don't really know him, but it does seem to me like if someone's willing to accept this responsibility, and he's known within the community here, that it was certainly no harm to appoint him to this and agree to that.
Mr. Chair,
He is a good guy.
I'm not questioning Mr. Thomas.
No, I understand.
I'm questioning the action of the
leadership.
chairperson that put it on the agenda, especially in the consent agenda. And this will not be the last time. I can assure you that we will see some maneuvering like this.
Okay, is this a motion?
Yes, it has. a
Is there any
motion
more
support.
discussion? Should I call for the vote, or should I move this to the next meeting?
You have a motion on the table, so unless that motion's going to be
You
approved
just
or
said to
denied.
call it to push it off to the next meeting.
But yeah.
That was one of your options, but it doesn't sound like you're interested.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. So, board reports.
Mr.
Parks and Recreation,
Can I be clear? I mean, there were 4 ayes. Were there any opposed? Okay,
No,
I'm sorry.
I heard
Thank you.
no opposition.
what did I say?
No, you did right. I just
Okay.
missed it.
Okay, well, so, reports. I would like to hear from the Parks and Recreation Subcommittee.
We'll start with the planning and
Oh,
metro.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
you missed one, the future agenda item.
Oh, future agenda items, I'm sorry.
I'd like to have on the next agenda, if the superintendent will put it on the agenda, is the library insurance of the building.
God, I'm so sorry. Did you want to do it this one?
Huh?
Do you want to do it now?
Yes, before we get to, that's the next one on the agenda, is the future agenda item.
Yes. Okay,
So that's what I'd like for it to be on the next,
do you have that, Superintendent Lehman?
Got it.
Okay, is there any more future agenda items besides this? This is on top of the ones we already added.
I have,
Superintendent Lehman,
Mr. Chair,
these would be on top of the ones we already talked about.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes,
have
sir.
one more item. I'd like to have a discussion on the next agenda about the access to the building.
Yes. Did you get that, Superintendent?
Got it.
Clerk Lane?
I would like to have the appointment that needed to be filled in 2019 on the next agenda as well.
Appointment for, might as well.
ZBA, I'm sorry.
The ZBA.
Right.
Is there any more future items? Okay. Board reports, Planning Commission, Metro Alliance. Trustee Mansour.
So, with respect to the Planning Commission, first off, the Master Plan Steering Committee met ahead of the Planning Commission meeting this month. We're continuing to work on finishing up the plan. A couple of significant things have occurred, though, over the last month. First off, we've received a summary of the surveys that were taken, amounting to 747 different surveys that were received. And a draft of the results of those is being circulated amongst the steering committee for review. And I would imagine that that can be circulated to the entire board here shortly if there's interest. But it did provide some very interesting insights to the community here. But again, some of them, depending on how you look at them, can be a little bit conflicting. And also there was a kind of a way to look at the data, based, using renters as one group of respondents versus kind of everyone. And maybe it shows a little bit of different needs that renters have, a different perspective than homeowners. But anyway, so that's a piece that is coming together. The other thing that we spent time on was the centers and corridors aspect of this. So within the township, there were 4 or 5 different areas that were identified as being specific areas of attention where we could have corridors that were kind of improvements, and this will end up flowing into the recommendations and implementation plan. And then there's also economic centers, one of which would be Tech Village. That's a part of this, an entertainment area, restaurant area, that kind of thing. So again, I just wanted to make you aware that we're clicking through these different sections. We've got one more section to complete, and then we will be scheduling some of course, who knows with the coronavirus thing, but the idea was to schedule a kind of a town hall meeting within the next month or so to get public input on where the draft of the master plan is, but we may have to be more creative on that. And the other thing that the Planning Commission did is we did approve an upgrade to the Little Caesars franchise that's north of Hill Road and east of Fenton. They're basically going to be right now they occupy probably 60% of the building that they're in. They're going to be taking over the balance of the building and then creating a drive-through, which would be an interesting thing. So here's an interesting thing for you, just to give you a little deal. For their drive-throughs, they are only going to basically allow people to order their like hot and ready stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, and their turn time is expected to be 30 seconds. So they have a limited menu, you drive through, you order ahead of time, whatever, you pick it up and you go. But anyway, I just thought that was pretty interesting. So they're rearranging this building in order to provide a flow path for there.
And where?
It's
North of Hill.
just north of Hill. There's a Little Caesars there now.
Oh, yeah.
And they're looking at
past the-
exactly the other side of McDonald's. Exactly right. So anyway, that's pretty cool. So that's all I have for a report. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Massey, do you have a fire commission?
Yes, I have. I would like to pass that to the attorney. Where are we for as resolving the issues that we have to conclude that we no longer need the other parties?
We're getting closer.
We are.
Yeah, in fact, Mr. Griffin and I had a conversation with representative of Yo and Yo, and they are very close to finalizing the final audit and the recommendation of the division of the non-personal property assets, so really accounts in the bank. And so I expect that any day, frankly.
Good news.
Okay. Treasurer Earl?
The only thing I'll report, we did put in the first monthly report from our PFM, and it showed that we were only in there for about 9 days, but it showed that our interest-bearing account, the liquid account, made like $9,000, and they have the allocation for fixed funds, but it was still in transition, so it hasn't been booked properly at that point in time, but it did show that we had 15% for long-term and about 85% for short-term.
So, can I ask a question on that, please? So, Treasurer, how does that compare? I mean, it's only a very short period of time, right? How does that compare with the performance that we were used to getting? I mean, you can hardly make a... Well, I guess maybe next month when we get it,
Yeah, we can
if we could take a look at it and kind of see.
Yeah,
Well,
we can look at it.
but no, but these are all interest-bearing things,
Right.
so it should be okay.
Well,
Maybe.
their liquid was 166,
Yeah.
and I think I was over 2 something.
Okay. The other thing on this is, as we look at this situation we find ourselves in here, we're looking at interest rates dropping right and left. What can we do, or can we think about refinancing the balance of the debt that's owed on maybe some of our assets here, like the police building, etc.,
Yeah, the police
to
building.
to refinance that at a lower rate?
The police building is, we did refinance it a few years back, and there's only one, you only have one timeline to do it, and that time isn't here yet. So we can't refinance the police building.
We can't do it ever.
No, it's about 8 more years out, I think.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Clerk Lane?
I provided the information to the board where we had 35% of our voters vote, which was an unexpected high. We had more people voting by absentee ballot. Anybody that gets a yellow absentee ballot request, this is for the May special election. I asked the printer, I said, if we print this in white, everybody, with it being so close to the presidential primary, will think it's more for the presidential primary. So I said, my favorite color is yellow. So he chose yellow, which has people at least calling and saying, how come? And I said, because it's for the schools, Goodrich and Grand Blanc millage request. So at least everybody, if anybody asks, why is it yellow? It's yellow so they wouldn't throw it in the trash and that they'd ask a question. So we've already got several of them in and back already. So looking forward to the May election.
Parks and Rec, is that it, Clerk Lane?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Parks and Rec Subcommittee, Al?
I guess, you know, the subcommittee, we need to meet again here to continue to work and be prepared for the first day of our new director. So we want to have some more discussion and kind of be sure that we have a good set of materials outlined for him. So we'll plan on meeting again in the next week or so.
On top of that, we really need to get our hands on the capital budget too.
Yeah. The other issue of Parks and Rec that I happened to notice was an article that was from March 9th on MLive having to do with the dog park and elimination of fees and elimination of registration requirements. So that would mean licensing, confirming vaccinations, etc. So I guess I was surprised to see that. You know, we don't have our full-time director on board yet, and I don't recall really any discussion in the subcommittee about this. So I'm just very surprised that we had that direction taken and this communicated to the press. You know. Especially because I thought that we were channeling our communications to the press through a couple people in the township.
Superintendent Lemata, can you, so I too was kind of taken back when I read the article in the Flint Journal. And I thought when we talked as a board of directors, we made a decision that no major changes would be done in the Parks and Rec until we all made that decision. And I'm not sure, I haven't talked to Attorney Laddie about this, but I know that in order for them to bring the dogs in before, that they would have their shots, they would have proof of their shots, their rabies shots, for the protection of people, and besides people, everyone else's dogs. And I'm not sure if that opens us up to some liability now, but if you can answer on why the sudden changes on the dog park.
Sure, I wouldn't say it's eliminated, I would say it was suspended, and there's a reason for that. The gate apparently hasn't worked out there for a couple of years. They would send somebody over there, they would spend money, they would fix it, and then it would work for about a week or so, and then it would stop working. So we had some people who were paying and coming in and following the rules, but the vast majority of people just went out and used the dog park. So when people started to come this year saying, well, I have to pay my registration, and we had a lot of people complaining, well, why am I paying $20 or $25 or whatever it was in order to get a gate code so I can punch it in so my dog can go into the park when there's 100 people out there using it who the gate doesn't lock. It hasn't locked for over a year.
You said
Apparently,
2-3 years.
It's been going on forever is what I was told. And they said, so do we still keep taking people's money or do we stop taking people's money? And I said, no, you should stop taking people's money until you know you can have the gate fixed, because it's not fair for us to collect from some residents and not collect from everybody when clearly anybody can go in and out of there. So I wouldn't say that it's been eliminated, and I'm not aware of the article you're talking about. But it's really,
yes.
Because we're not, I made that decision that until at such time we can get it fixed.
So you suspended the rules about having the dogs with having shots that the board
No, I
set up?
didn't suspend those rules.
That's what it says. I'm not going to argue with you, but that's what it says in this news release.
Again, I can't speak to that. All I can speak to is taking money for people, from some people, to use a dog park while the rest didn't have to pay didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. We either have to get it right or get it wrong. Part of our capital project should probably go to, if that's what we're going to do, then let's fix it. And then as soon as it's fixed, we can have people come back in, pay their registration fee, show their license, and begin to use it.
Okay, I just want to finish up this one point, is that when did we change the two people that are supposed to be identified with the press?
Again, I don't know what you're referring to.
I'm looking at
Scott Bennett.
Journal.
Is it the article that you were referring to was when I was on vacation and Scott told me he was talking to MLive about the dog park?
No, this was directed, press release from Sanja Limata. We decided to stop and just open it up to the public and give more people the opportunity to use the space at Creasy Bicentennial Park. In addition to the fee, the park also previously required dog owners to register the dog with the Parks and Recreation Department and show proof of the dog being licensed in Genesee County. Now, Limata said they're doing away with that too. If someone wants to use the dog park, she said, they can now just walk right in. There's a gate, but it's open to everyone. So if they just pull on the gate, they'll be able to use the dog park, Limata said.
I would
Chairman
defer to
Thomas. It doesn't sound to me like it doesn't sound to me like the sentiment that the superintendent was talking about, where we do it temporarily until we get the gate fixed. But from my perspective here, it would be better to get the gate fixed and to solve that problem rather than to kind of handle it this way. But who knows if the article is 100% accurate either.
How do you get the genie back in the bottle?
Guess you fix the gate.
Yeah, you just lock it.
But that's a different sentiment. Giving people a grace period until we get the gate fixed is a different sentiment than opening it up for everyone. So, anyway.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, trustee
Go-
Massey.
You had your hand up.
Okay, Clerk Lane.
Well, I would ask that the police chief get involved, because my concern would be having people in the park with dogs that we don't know are properly vaccinated and not only could do damage to other dogs, but to people that are there with their dogs, and we would have no way of saying, something happened, we don't know who did it, gee, we're sorry, is not the answer that I want the public. Or if there is something that gets worse with one dog, doing it, and we can't identify who it is. If you have any thoughts, I'd like you to give your input to this park subcommittee that I think needs to address that kind of a situation. We haven't had any incidences there because we've had it locked. And so if you have any suggestions, please give them to the park subcommittee to help resolve this problem.
Yeah, I understand the discussion, but I'm not totally understanding of the problem from a law enforcement standpoint. If you're referring to dog bites, there is a process currently in place to deal with any dog that would bite another dog or person for that matter.
Okay.
And we are more than happy to intervene as a law enforcement agency to handle that procedure to make sure that everything is handled correctly.
I guess what I'm saying is the dogs that I know we've had problems with are in subdivisions or something, and you found lost dogs, or if some neighbor identifies this is the dog, it belongs to Mr. Smith, you can address it that way. I'm talking about if we don't have a list of people using that park and there's an incident out there and whoever had the problem, the dog owner and the dog leave, and we have no way of even identifying
I think you can say
them.
that for any park or any area of the township though. So if you're asking to put an officer in Bicentennial
No.
Park to check dog tags,
No.
I'm not sure that's the greatest use of our
No,
resources.
I'm not asking and never intended that. I'm just saying, with all the training, you might have some suggestions from the training that your officers have gone to that could help resolve this problem, because I am concerned about rabid dogs or
For sure.
those, incidents with those kind of owners that wouldn't have their dog properly licensed and vaccinated being there when others address the law
Yeah,
properly.
I'm happy to work with anyone
appreciate
who's
it. That's
working
all
for
I
the
wanted.
superintendent or parks or the
Right.
park committee.
Thank you.
Trustee Massey?
Yes, I have one comment about that article. It's quite apparent to me that the superintendent and the chairperson can make decisions without the board. They just wildly make a decision and come up with what I call a valid sounding excuse. Something that made it to the press and they printed someone's name that's associated with the township, that you cannot deny that. Because I've heard the chair said many times, the chairperson has said many times, that there's only one voice here, that's it comes through superintendent. So now we getting these press release, seeing a press release that comes from the township, and the superintendent doesn't know anything about it. And it's coming directly from his daughter. I don't quite understand that. And I mean, I'm just, I'm bombarded that the superintendent is trying to deny it. So who is running the parks? The superintendent doesn't have a say in the parks? Nobody's reporting to him? He just read he being the chairperson, just read the article. You can't deny the article.
I didn't deny.
Hold on, please please go through me, don't talk to Trustee Massey.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
should I respond?
Yes.
I didn't deny it. In fact, I told you I made that decision.
I never heard you say that.
Well,
I never heard you say that you made that decision.
I absolutely just
If
said
he said-
those
He said
very
that
words.
tonight, he did, Mr. Massey. He said it
Yeah,
earlier in this discussion.
So that's what I said.
Time out, but what
And
Superintendent Lemata said is that he made the decision, but he didn't make the decision to, he was just closing the loophole and until the gate gets fixed, and then we're gonna go back to charging people.
Hold on. Let's clear up something. Let's
Yes,
clear
sir.
up to something. Here's
Is that what
what
he
he's
said?
doing. Here's what he's saying. I made the decision. I'm not talking about the gate. I'm speaking about the press release. Who
Can
made
I-
that decision?
Can I finish?
He is the leader here at the township.
Okay.
If someone is going to the press, putting their name associated with an article, so what does that leave the superintendent? So
Okay.
is he leading? He letting certain people do whatever they want to since one is his daughter?
Well, let's let him finish.
I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous.
What you mean ridiculous?
Guys, stop.
He read the article.
Let me finish.
Well, you finished. Don't be
No,
calling
I
me when
never
said
finished.
ridiculous.
No, I never
He read
finished.
the article.
I also said, I told you I made that decision. And I also said at the exact same time that when that article was going on, I know I was on vacation because Supervisor Bennett called me and told me that he was meeting with the reporter from M Live to discuss the closure or the opening of the dog park because the gate doesn't work. And he was wondering if it was appropriate to bring the Assistant Parks and Rec Director into that conversation. And I said, I don't see any reason why that wouldn't occur. So I wasn't here. Supervisor Bennett was here. He did bring in the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation to discuss that with M Live. And that's exactly what I said earlier, Trustee Massey.
The thing is, though, Superintendent, is that Scott's name is never mentioned in this. Not once. Not even being president. But I guess that's to be later determined. I have a phone call into this reporter. Attorney Laddie, does Trustee Bennett have...
Supervisor Bennett?
Does Supervisor Bennett have the authority to suspend safety rules like that?
He does.
First of all, what I need to do is I would need to go back and review whatever rules were in place regarding admission to the dog park. I just saw an article from 3 or 4 years ago when it was created, when they discussed putting a fee on it. I didn't see any requirement that dogs had to prove that they had their shots and rabies and things like that. So I need to know, first of all, in my mind, is there a rule that says that?
Yep, I'll send it. It's, if you look at look at the Facebook page for Parks and Rec.
Okay.
It's right there.
Well, do I have to do it now, or can I do it?
No, I don't care.
Okay. But I'm happy to weigh in on that, right? And I believe that from liability standpoint, I think we need to examine how we want the dogs to be registered. Do we want to charge a fee? If we do, how much? First of all, we're going to fix the gate, right?
Right,
Absolutely. And then secondly, we're going to figure out what it takes to get past the gate. And so I'm happy to look at those issues. I'd have to look at whether or not there was a safety violation or safety protection regulation in place that the supervisor voided, but I'm happy to examine that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Trustee Massey.
It's what bothers me the most, attorney. You tell me whether I'm right or wrong. When an article is printed in the newspaper, the assumption is made that the board okayed it. So that's a reflection on the board when it's not explained otherwise.
Someone could draw that conclusion, I suppose.
And so drawing that conclusion means that the residents could say the board approved it when the board didn't know anything about it. The board read the article at the same time probably they were reading the article.
So someone could make that assumption, sure.
So it looks like we're on a standstill, so when you get that information, could you email that out to the board, please? Okay, is there, I'd like to hear a motion to, do we need an executive meeting?
So moved that we adjourn, Mr. Chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mansour.